chat room. We're getting started. Hit that like, share the show. We'll be up in just a minute. All right, we're about to get started. About 30 seconds, everybody. Hit the like, share the show. Give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. In this modern media environment, it doesn't matter. Here we go. Chat room, welcome to the show. Good morning. Hit that like, share the show. We're full of emotes today. The Twitchers are out in force. This is very exciting. This looks like a gamer. Throw all those bits and emotes in there. I know it helps in the internet dollars of things. You know, the kids today and their little crazy little blurby things. And again, like, subscribe if you're watching this for the first time. I don't know where you've been, but I pity you. My first guest this morning is a very special guest. Robert J. O'Neill is joining me. He is the author of The Operator, and he is a Navy SEAL with 400 plus missions, which includes the one that took out Osama bin Laden. And also, I think, people can single in on. And welcome to the show, Robert. Thank you for being here. By the way, is it Robert?
I'm excited, man. I've been waiting for this for a while. That's
cool. Good. Yeah, I'm glad that anybody smiles to see me when they have a gun on their wall. It's better than the alternative.
Remind me to tell you the story about that gun later. It's hilarious.
I love a good hilarious gun story. My I don't know if you know this, but full disclosure, my cousin is a U.S. Marshal. He was a Marine, and he was on Air Force One, Clinton into Bush, and he's got the longest fugitive catch in history right now. Hopefully he keeps the record. I'm hoping he tops it because there's somebody else he's going after, and we're plugging for him every day to get Lester Eubanks. People can see that all over America's Most Wanted and whatnot. But so I want to talk to you about certainly the gun on your wall and the hilarious story that goes with it. I have a couple of funny sword stories myself, but let's let's start in with a couple of things. For those that aren't familiar with you, and kind of sort of where the decision to write a book about what happened, and you're kind of pushing that, and then you're kind of life doing it and then talking about it, because you become I wouldn't say a motivational speaker. I think there's like lightning bolt speakers, which kind of motivational speakers, I think, are the people who like almost stand behind you like a coach. I would say Tony Robbins is kind of one of those people, or Brian Tracy or something. They write these books ongoing. It's almost like there's little signposts along, but there are people also that I think that write motivational books or give speeches that are supposed to hit you and shift you in the moment, and then you carry on from there. And considering your experience, I feel like you went through moments like that and convey them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's what it is, and I call it the operator because it's the life of the operator, meaning whatever you do, you're operating. The points that I make that seriously, like the trash men in Manhattan that get up at 2 a.m. and don't kiss their kids goodbye, don't get thank you, but they clean up the city, are operating. A single mom is an operator, and I wrote my book about the life of the operator because I was never going to be in the military. It's just proof that life happens around you as you're making a plan.
Right.
I was going to play college basketball, which I was going to get an MBA and work for my dad. I got dumped by a girl and left town, tried to join the Marine Corps. He wasn't there, joined the Navy, kind of on accident, not knowing how to swim. And just getting
that must have been a hell of a breakup. I mean, honestly, joining the Navy when you can't learn to swim is peak heartbreak.
You'd be surprised how many men and women in our all volunteer military are there because they got dumped. Seriously. So many. It's more of I just had to get out of town. And I met people from Fredericksburg, Virginia, and South Florida. I met dudes that got out of, this is in boot camp, dudes that left the gangs in Southern California, Long Island. Everyone was leaving some relationship. And what we had in common the first day in the Navy was we were all terrified and we knew we made a horrible decision. But just the long-term goals through short-term goals is the life of the operator. But when I got to SEAL training, no way in hell I'm going to make it through. My dad told me to start keeping a journal. This is 1996, way before 9/11. Right. And I said, why would I keep a journal? He said, in case someone wants to read your book. And I said, who in the hell would ever want to read my book? But I did. And my dad was the type of guy that he thought I was everywhere all the time. He thought I was part of everything. But when I joined the Navy, I had about 5 months before I left. He showed me a picture of a Life magazine of a thing called drown proofing in SEAL training, where they tie you up and throw you in the pool. And he's pointing at one of the guys saying, that's definitely you. I recognize your calves. And I'm like, Dad, I haven't left for the Navy yet. That can't be me.
Yeah, right. I'm still on the bus.
He gave me advice. Yeah, I'm here. But he said, just keep a journal, which is smart for everybody. You should be journaling. But then once I got to a point where, just because of the right attitude and wherever you are, be there, I was on a lot of these big missions. And a couple years after I got out, 5 years after I got out of the Navy, I just submitted my journal, and I got help with editors, and then it was approved by the Pentagon, so I released it. And I think that if people are involved with wars, which there are no shortage of now, whatever your story is, people should get to hear it, know our history, as long as you're not giving away tactics or giving away, putting anyone else in danger. So that was my thinking in a nutshell.
Yeah, and the journaling process is one that I have started and stopped many times. I have a lot of like abandoned hardbound books over times because I eventually end up moving to digital if it's comedy notes, or trying to organize it into some sort of maddening mind map or something along those lines. What would you tell people? I mean, were you always journaling? Were you always keeping a journal? Or did your dad just tell you to do it and you did it?
No, I
Whoops, we lost a little bit of audio in there. Hold on 1 second. There we go. Hold on.
Okay.
There you go. Better. Go ahead.
I was a freshman in high school, and I was in an English class, and her name was Shar Davis. And I remember she made us read The Old Man and the Sea, published by Simon & Schuster. And the quizzes she gave on us were based on the most minute details. It really made me read harder, if that's a word, but it got my English better. And I just started to take grammar seriously. And I read a book published by Simon & Schuster that eventually published my book, the same place. It's kind of a weird energy type consciousness.
Yep.
But I always took pride in now that I'm saying I like my grammar, I'm sure I'll screw something up and get yelled for it. But just the English class and being in that classroom, getting published by the same publisher, and now my mother teaches in that classroom, and she's almost 80. It's just a weird cycle.
Clearly, you live near some sort of Earth meridian line vortex, and have been visited by.
We didn't have a lot of shit to do in Butte, Montana.
Yeah, as I understand. Uh, Butte, Montana. That is. I don't know if people know this. That's where Jiminy Glick is from. Martin Short's character, in the big fat suit. Yeah,
You're kidding me.
nope. The character is from Butte, Montana.
Oh, is that who it is?
He's the entertainment reporter for the Butte, Montana local television station.
I'll be damned.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm
when he
looking
gets
into
his
that. So Evil Knievel's from there too.
Right. Yeah. So
Yeah.
extraordinary people making an impact and breaking bones along the way. That said, I want to get into your kind of opinion on the current state of affairs a little bit. I don't know how much you want to read into, where this goes in Iran and those kind of things, or just from just a reasoning ideology, like where you are in terms of how this has to go
Okay.
on a realistic term. Like, do you see from your combat experience and that kind of stuff that there's a, bomb and get out kind of situation, or from what does this look like it's longer than they're saying? Just a vibe, on
I,
that.
I think just based on my history, everything's longer than it's saying, and everything is mission creep, and something always happens.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you do in combat can get you killed, including nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Your bet, like I've seen, today's the anniversary. Was
Mm-hmm.
23 years ago we invaded Iraq. I was all about that. I was a young Navy SEAL. I would fight anybody after 9/11. And
Mm-hmm.
looking back, that was one of the biggest mistakes in the history of this country.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the same thing. It was the
Right.
same intel. You got to believe me. You got to trust us. And we did. And now I'm turning 50 next month, and it's like Iraq's a thing where we never should have invaded, but we also shouldn't have left the way we did. It's a different animal, and they're
Right.
all the same thing. Right now, where I am. Because I was asked the other day, are you for or against the war in Iran? I said, whichever way positively affects my grandchildren, that's what I'm for.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very slippery slope, because I know Pete Hegseth really well. He was at my wedding. I know Donald Trump.
Wow.
I've had dinner with him at the house. I am basing what I think on how they want their families to grow up. And I'm talking children and grandchildren.
Sure.
I think they think they're doing the right thing. I want to support that. If it's so complex. I don't want to get into a major war. I don't want people going in there and dying. I hate people cheering when they watch people get bombed, because I don't think I've never been bombed, but I've been near them. It is the scariest, most permanent, the fastest, comes out of nowhere. It's not just the best thing that can happen to you if you get bombed is you vaporize. I don't even want to talk.
Yeah.
Buildings on top of you, you might suffocate in 3 days.
Right.
Not at all. You have to be right. And I want this to work. I just hate getting hit, because regardless of what happens, regardless of who the bad guy is, innocent people get killed, get hurt. Some of the most welcoming people I've ever met in my life was at 2:30 in the morning in Ramadi in the wrong house. And they're just trying to get on with their life too. It's so complex. There's so much going on. And with all the instant news and immediate gratification, everyone has to be right all the time. This needs patience on so many different levels. It's hard for me to even say where.
Well,
I really.
I agree. I agree. I would say I've never had dinner with either of those gentlemen and have a very strong opinion about both of them in this particular situation. In the same way that I have a very strong, and that's based on the reality, less so about Hegseth, who I think is more in a PR position at the Department of War right now than a decision making or effectuating situation. It seems, but in the case of Donald Trump. I feel the same way about him that I feel about like where we are with AI and the automation of the workforce and the changing economic strata of the United States over the next 10 years, is that we currently have people who understand the least about the seriousness of it running that part of it. And I think the time for consideration and patience on these things, really gathering all the evidence and making a deep and ethical and moral decision has passed. And the reason why I think we haven't gone into Iran before is because previous presidents, and even maybe Trump in his first term, I don't know what intel he was getting or not getting or ignoring or diving into, made the decision that once you open this, it stays open. And that was that was the absurdity of shock and awe, was that people will talk about the yellow cake versus they were 2 weeks away from a nuke.
Yeah.
That's very parallel with what we're going through right now. But I would
It's
argue,
exactly the same thing.
and I would argue with the Hegseth is following a more Rumsfeld and Kissinger ideology about this. Is that this is we're going to be the people to serve to solve this, and that's that. It's just going to happen. And it's ties to PNAC and the idea that Iran was the last country on their list, and this 7-nation list of places they were going to knock over, and we're basically there. Shows that this is this is more of like a typical Republican train towards a war decision that has less to do about the realities of 2 weeks away, and we're going to do this on our timetable over the course of multiple presidencies, and this is just going to happen.
No, I mean, it seems like it's going that way too. And I mean, then you have your cheerleaders in the Senate. Look at Lindsey Graham. He's never met a war. He's never met a war he didn't love. He's also never met a war he's ever fucking been to.
Right.
It pisses me off too. I'm a registered independent. I obviously lean to the right.
Sure.
But like and we're opposite. We've proved it before. But this is the conversation that needs to be had.
Yeah.
Right here.
There is a definite bridge, right? And it's out of both. I think both of us have a respect for the realities of the circumstance. It is 100%. Not. This is. I wouldn't find it being an R versus D situation, and it's a shame that we find unique moments. I've always said there's no partisan issues. There are only partisan solutions. That some people might look at the problem from a different angle, but the problem is still the real problem. And that in this particular case, it's. Could we solve it with a treaty? Is there, ways that we could have done it? And we had one before. The problem we run in with Trump is that he tore up the last one, so I don't know how anybody makes a deal with a guy who tore up the last deal. That's always going to be the issue with who we're dealing with. And the entrenchedness of that leadership. They are equally as arrogant and dug in that regard. The issue that I have is right now it looks like we're sending Marines to Karg Island, and that is the first step towards, how many was it? Yeah, how many was it in Iraq? Was it 1,800 and then 2,000, and then there was a group after group after group, and then a big wave. Yeah, well, and they just asked for $200 billion.
In Vietnam, right?
Right.
The Gulf of Tonkin is the start of the Vietnam War, and allegedly even Archduke Ferdinand got killed in the start of World War III with complete bullshit. But I mean, the point is it always comes like that too. And I've even suggested, like, if you need Marines on the beaches to make sure no one's launching drones, you're creeping, but. Shit! Don't tell anybody. I'm running out of solutions here too. It's like I want the right thing to happen. It's so difficult.
Dude, it's like Christmas lights. It's like at a certain point when you start unraveling them, that's your day. And there's a certain element in in all these situations. It's not about whether there's a good argument about the timeline, whether it should be done and whether it shouldn't. But once it is, all those options are jettisoned. Those are, you can't, we can Monday morning quarterback, the decision getting into it. But the reality is now we're dealing with this situation where we are in there. There is a kinetic war happening, and it is with a force in terms of the IRGC. They hit an F-35 yesterday. That while we may, I don't think there's any doubt ever that the U.S. government and our military could wipe out Iran if we wanted to. The question is
no doubt about it.
None. But you can't do it without killing a significant number of the citizenry unless you do it surgically, and you can't do it surgically for long. At some point, there's a tipping point, whether it's us or Israel, where somebody's going in there, whether it's small SEAL groups or it's something like that. It's there. If there haven't been boots on the ground already, which I would argue there already have been. At least the Israelis had it last time. That this is going to be an ongoing thing for a while, and it's why you don't unpack these things unless you're ready to go the distance. And it seems like they are, but you still got to tell the American people that we'll be out in 2 weeks. That's the trap.
See, it's hard too. And then the hard thing is to tell the truth, but the creep goes a weird way. And just bear with me for a second, because if I say, because this is happening right now, Israel hits something, someone's going to say Israel shouldn't do that. And then all of a sudden, very sneakily, Israel gets out and we start hitting it. Now it's our problem. And I've seen that in Iraq too. But then if I say that, they call me anti-Semitic. But
Right.
then if I say I'm also want to be careful of the spread of Sharia law, I'm Islamophobic.
Right.
And it's a lot of this stuff. If you want to be a serious person, we should try to go line by line and get rid of the name calling. Maybe what I said offended someone from Israel or someone from Iran. And I'm not trying to be a name caller or a bigot or whatever. Here's the problem. Now we need a solution. And when I talk to football teams, a very good point is it doesn't matter why it's 2nd and 15. It just is. Now what we can do is we can blame each other for the missed assignment, but what we all have in common is that clock is ticking right now. When the helicopter crashed in Bin Laden's house, I was on the other one, didn't know it crashed until they opened the door. I didn't know they were in there. It doesn't fucking matter. We're just here. That's where we're at.
Right.
We can complain about the past. We're not going to change. It's like having guilt. Good, you're guilty. It doesn't matter. Learn from it. Move on.
That's right. I think I've always been a big fan of regret because I think it tempers you as a human being, and you go, I'm not going to do that again.
You learn from mistakes,
especially morally. And in this particular case, I think the next lesson for everybody is who you're putting in charge of things and the seriousness with which you do it, and that should always be on your mind in a democracy, anyways. But right now, the circumstances that we're in is, I feel like a lot of Americans feel like our hands are off the reins entirely. Even people who are deep red MAGA. There is a civil war happening on the right about this that is arguably more entrenched and has more violent language than even Democratic criticism of what the president is doing. I think there's still comedy in the talk about it from the other side of the aisle, but internally, Dave Smith, Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson. They represent a ton of people within the.
Well, Joe Kent just stepped out too, said he couldn't do it, and then he's getting attacked as a Ranger Green Beret with 11 combat deployments, and now people on the right are calling him a coward. I have a big problem with that.
It's bizarre.
If you went anywhere 11 times, you're not a coward. If you walk down the streets of the bodega in the city, you're not a coward.
Right.
But 11 deployments, and then how quick they turn, that's pissing a lot on the right off. I mean, that pisses me off too. I don't know what happened in his house. I don't know his personal life. He's certainly not a coward. He obviously saw something, heard something, and made him uncomfortable. Why is it out of line to say, well, what is it? And then find out the truth. And then a problem that I'm having too is that we're just getting lambasted with so much information. You got to take a tactical pause and you got to verify everything. Now it's a world we live in now. It's fast, and you get mentioning New York. If it's not on your block in 5 minutes, it doesn't exist. But also the truth is skeptical.
Right. Well, you should be. You should trust an olive and tie up your camel, I think is the one before right is the.
I'm stealing that one.
Right, yeah. But in terms of Joe Kent, I wouldn't necessarily think that that coward fits the word. I think that's meant to shock him because he's a military man, and that's how you weaponize words against someone that will actually have an impact. At least you think will, right? And it might be an absurdity that would bite, but that's what they think. Most people will attack people based on what they think would hurt, and it's not how it works in combat. It's not how it works in a fist fight, and it doesn't really work in an argument most of the time, especially if that person has divergent ideology than you. And I think what's happened is either he was an entrenched ideologue and kept it hidden, and in his position in government released, or he shifted his ideology over time because he's been he's wavering with the crowd internally, and that's how these internal civil wars are bearing themselves out. And again, not knowing the human being, recognizing that I think the biggest criticism that I've seen of him is that he's come out and said, I saw something that, we didn't have this evidence that there was an imminent threat, which I believe as well. I think that's arguably true, but I don't have a briefing to verify that. But I think that's a reasonable assumption, considering at least that there wasn't right now, because we quote unquote obliterated their entire nuclear arsenal last year. If we did, then obviously they're not. If they're 2 weeks away, that was a short obliteration, the shortest. And that's something, right. So in the case of Kent,
because we bombed him a year ago, and they said it was obliterated. Now we're back in there, and then again, the problem is, how do you make sure you put people in there? Now, I was at SEAL Team 6. We have people that do that. Delta Force does too, but that's boots on the ground. I mean, are we going to do that? And what's the definition of boots on the ground? Because it could be best intentions, and it's all of a sudden it's a full-on invasion. I mean,
Right.
we're numbering our wars since 1913. World War One, World War Two, Gulf War One, Gulf War Two. Is this Gulf War Three? Like the banks get involved now. We're numbering our. Is that part of it
According,
too? There
yeah.
are a lot of people getting rich off these wars.
It's good. Yeah, well, it's where it goes in the ledger. You know what I mean? You have to figure out what tax year it's in and how to file it, right? You know,
Yeah, oh yeah, it's all money, man. It's crazy to think this country was started on a 2% tax on tea. The war.
Yeah, but it
Now
kind
we're
of
just getting taxed everywhere.
makes well, it's you know, and again, as an establishment towards you want to talk about mission creep, creep towards full ownership of the production of anybody for the king in the colonies. So that the idea was that would eventually everybody's afraid of a slippery slope, and I think that's where we are right now. Is the you know, and I think that's where everybody's reticence about this comes from, and it's there's a bunch of people, and I would consider myself one of them that goes I have a problem with the justification. I have a problem with the reasoning without weeping at all for the Islamic leadership of Iran, who have tortured and killed the Iranian people for decades as much as they've killed anybody outside the country. If I would argue more, the body count inside the country is higher than the body count outside the country in terms of Iran right now. If you excluding, I guess, the Iraq-Iran war. But like we're talking 30 to 50,000 of their own people just in the since the beginning of the year before all this stuff started.
Yeah.
So and the idea that's new.
They just executed that 19-year-old national champion wrestler, a young stud, growing up wrestler, for protesting. They hung him.
Right, and
I mean, those are bad people too. It's like, what's the answer?
Right, and that's the thing is that at a certain point, that I'm sure there are ideologues in the world that, in the same way that there were, crusaders or Catholic missionaries or the conquistadors or whatever that went. These people are awful, and they're in Central America, and they celebrate a new building by cutting everybody the hearts out of 40,000 people and throwing them down the stairs. So at a certain point, they just decide it's going to be at some point we're going to have to deal with this. That's where their head is at, and maybe there's a reason, maybe there isn't, but they get fixated on it. And once the money's behind it, once the king is behind it, once this there's enough of a support, there's a tipping point where that it tips over into a kinetic situation.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at King Leopold. The Dutch went to the Congo to spread Christianity, but all of a sudden there's a lot of money in the slave trade. We're just shipping people to Brazil and the United States. I mean, you might have the best intentions going places, but you start putting men and money involved, corruption's right behind them with the lawyers and the politicians.
Well, and again, in the Congo, that was the easiest thing to buy there. Getting the resources out of there and converting people was a lot of work. You could get killed, but they were selling other tribesmen from south of them.
Rivers are incredible.
Yeah, and they would sell you a guy, like, here, take this guy, and he'll take you upriver, and if he doesn't, you can throw him overboard. And that was, and then that was the beginning of it. So, humans are humans, and we will continue to human until we learn our lesson, I suppose.
I think humans are the biggest problem to humans. Other than that, we're good. Like I heard Jimmy Carr said, I think it was either socialism or he said communism, great theory, wrong species. That's
right.
what he said.
Yeah.
It could happen, but man, people just suck, and we've all proven that, each one of us.
Yeah. Well, and also as long as we're living in a narrow resource corridor, there will be people who seek security and having more resources than they need, and they will be strange bedfellows with the greedy and the evil. And then there will be people who are willing to share and open up, and those people will be taken advantage of by those people, right?
Of course.
And because
I mean, the prime examples are look, toilet paper in 2020 and any shopping center, the shopping carts, all of this. Collectivism won't work simply because we're lazy. That's it.
Right. We'll still. That's why you had to put brakes on shopping carts so they stop at the end of the. Yeah.
That's exactly why. That's funny.
And people will blame like homeless people, but then there'll be a dude with an F-150 with 6 carts in the back of his thing because they could work at his shop as as wheelies. Like it's ridiculous. So I feel like we're in this circumstances, and I appreciate you being on. And by the way, I want to remind everybody, Robert J. O'Neill is the author of The Operator. It is one of those books that I think folks on my side of the aisle might not tend to read. And necessarily, right? Sometimes, but there's definitely a reading list on both sides, and I think that a lot of folks on the right that you think are really into it might just have it on the shelf just to point at it.
Yeah.
And that, and I think the important thing is to get the words and the meaning out of it. And I, you know, I'm sure you have some, some notable quotables. As a matter of fact, I know of a couple in there. But my grandmother used to say things like "opportunity is when luck is when opportunity meets preparation,"
Of course,
and
yeah.
those kind of things. And those have been around for a long time. But there was one that there were a couple of things that stood out to me that are kind of timely for now. Well, one was when things go right for so long, success can kill. And there's a this society that you said that, and there's a comfort aspect of this. I also think it has to do with when rich people or people who can complain from the warm side of a bay window dictate very serious circumstances. You get a situation where
Hmm.
not only can success kill, but it kills other people. There's many of an armchair quarterback writing stuff from the warm side of a bay window about workers' rights or veterans affairs or what have you.
Hmm.
When they have no attachment to it, but it buys them social cred or is a form of virtue signaling. I think is the current.
Yeah, that's the term of the. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that I mean that's a dangerous one too. Just trying to look cool to your peers. Yeah,
Hmm.
something different, but yeah, yeah. I mean the book. I like the book because it's not a left or right thing. It's just there are stories in there they made movies out of. Like I was
Hmm.
on the mountain for Lone Survivor. We rescued Marcus Luttrell. I was the lead jumper. Actually, I left my daughter's Easter tea party when she was 4 on my birthday, Good Friday, April 10th, to rescue Captain Richard Phillips from Somali pirates.
Hmm.
And then I was on the base when Bo Bergdahl walked off. We actually did 19 hostage rescue missions to try to find Bergdahl. We were so close. I actually had that ransom cash in my hand, but they got him
Wow.
over Pakistan. And he was the guy for 5 years. And then I was on the mission to kill Bin Laden. I shot him in the face a few times. But like that's a whole. But it's all in the book. That just the whole like chapter by chapter of wherever you are, be there. An opportunity will knock. But the whole thing with luck too. If you're prepared, anything can happen. And the
Hmm.
preparation is as simple as if you want to be great at something, do it 100,000 times. You want to be a good
Hmm.
free throw shooter, do it. Shoot 100,000 free throws, you'll make more than you miss.
Yeah, I have this thing I teach my son, and that I learned, and I think I picked it up from a Stephen K. Hayes book in the '80s. The guy who wrote all the ninja books was that anything you can do blind, do it. Anything you can do without looking. You should know
Yeah,
for your own security. You should at some point you've walked up to your car and you've
yeah.
opened it and gotten in thousands of times. You should be able to do it while looking around you. And for your
That's why you see like the Major Payne movie where he's upside down with the blindfold putting the M16 together. That's a no shitter. I got in a gunfight one night in Kandahar, one night where and I fell. My gun went into the snow and then it pulled it up and it immediately froze. Gunfight going on at night with Nods. I had to take my gun apart, all the way apart. I stopped carrying a pistol because that's a waste of time. I carried a rapid rod, jammed the bore, cleaned the gun, put it back together, got back in a gunfight. I was really happy that, that was 15 years into my career. So I did it a few times, but I was very happy I knew how to do it in the dark because I've never done it, but I'm assuming if you point your gun at Al Qaeda, pull the trigger and it goes click, that's going to be a really interesting night.
Yeah, or well, I don't know that anybody will know if it was an interesting night. They won't be able to hear from you. You know, they won't hear your take on how the evening went in that circumstance.
I guess it all depends on how close the guy can close the distance because it turned into a fist fight real quick.
Yeah, yeah. The essence of that, I think, is that there's a certain like pride in everything you do aspect that I've always appreciated, and kind of like in Bushido and those kind of things where anything you're doing, do it right, add a touch of beauty to it. If you're focusing on making it beautiful or making it efficient, you're also gaining skill on top of that. And that there are a lot of things,
Oh, totally.
that I think people take for granted in their life that they can practice on all the time. And it bleeds
They do.
out. It makes it easier when you're cooking for the family, that you know where everything is and you do it that fast,
Yes.
and so you have
Mhm.
more time to talk and be present, because I think a lot of people lose their
True.
presence in their activities because it's almost new every time you do it.
Very true. Yeah, and they lose their presence in their phones too.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's. I have to say, I think that's about to go. That's going to be a trend that we're passing through into the other side.
So,
hmm I think. I
oh, that's
think.
cool. That's good. No, that's good to hear. That's encouraging.
I think between AI and wearables, you're going to see people walking around with glasses that they're going to be paying attention to something that's in there, but their line of sight will at least be forward, and that will be different. You're shifting from your line of sight from ever so slightly to the right, reading something, to straight ahead and being able to see who you're talking to is very different than this, right? And
That's true. But also, some dude in India is now recording everything you look at in your house. Just so you keep that in mind too. Yeah,
right,
so everything you have is no longer private. Someone's watching and someone's recording, and the algorithms keep in control.
sure.
If you read a, don't walk and read, and you'll be fine. You know what I mean? Yeah, I hope though, because people are going to look at their stuff. If people still look forward, don't get hit by a bus. I'm happy.
Yeah.
Then that's fine.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and again, the buses, and this goes to that kind of idea that if things go right for so long, success can kill. There's an element of, and this is Fried-A.I, and in the next hour, I talked to my buddy Rob Glenn, who's an engineer in Chicago, about what's coming in terms of AI and automation and all this kind of stuff. And we get deep into this. This is going to really truly impact people's lives in a way that they will start taking a bunch of stuff for granted. Now we always do. I think that's one of the things that human beings always take stuff for granted, and to some degree you kind of should be able to. Like, I should be able to take for granted that you're going to stay on the other side of the yellow line in traffic. I got to be aware. I got to pay attention, but I should be able to expect that from my fellow citizen to at least a reasonable degree, and so that's always the balance, and we're always handing off. Anytime anybody tells me that all the voters that are Americans are stupid and I don't trust anybody, I'm like, well, how did you drive to get here? Because you're
I had that conversation with my wife, no kidding, this morning, because I drove to get a bunch of crap at the grocery store, and I said it's truly amazing that this many people drive those heavy, fast cars around all the time, and more people aren't hurt. Like,
yeah,
that is amazing if you think about it. Because
it's
I'm one of the guys
ridiculous.
too that says, I'll say how dumb people are, and then I'm the guy blocking the line in the airport being the dummy. Like, we're all dumb. We all criticize each other. We all
Right.
do the same shit. It's amazing we're all still alive.
I know. There's I think everybody has you're trying to minimize your blind spot. I've always said that in raising children, at least temporarily when they're young, especially, you're trying to create a distance between FA and FO for them. You're trying to
Really.
buffer,
Yes.
buffer that distance until they have a chance to be able to make a real decision. And are
I
capable.
think I did. It's over 10 deployments with kids to war, and people would say, "What's it like coming back to young kids, like infants and toddlers?" And I said, "Well, at war, at least there are some fucking rules. The kids, I don't know what that was.
Right.
Like, what the hell was that?"
Yeah, well, and I would argue that there's sometimes you're deployed or you're working with people that you're like, my kids know this. My kids are smart enough to know this.
Yes,
Why don't you?
100%.
Right.
And again, too, and I think it goes back to thinking someone like criticizing someone while you're doing the same dumb stuff. It's a vicious cycle, but we all do it. And it's like, I fly a lot. I'm in airports pretty much every day, and I used to try to correct shit, but then I realized I'm doing that shit. It's kind of just watch it, enjoy it, take notes, and then just tell people.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. At one point, you got to get a 10,000-foot view of the fact that you're in an anthill when you're in an airport, and just deal with that. I mean, my mind is boggled by the amount of toilets flushing in a giant building at any given time. Like, the absurdity of plumbing just blows my mind when it's the fact that works. Thanks Romans, I guess, but still.
Right. Yes.
Right.
You know what I do is that when I'm in airports, I'll tip the dude in the bathroom cleaning it, just because there's another operator. No respect. But you're pissed when the shitter's dirty. Like, thank you for cleaning this. Get a beer after work, something like
exactly.
that.
So one of the other quotes from you I want to talk about is nothing is scary, stress is a choice, if I'm getting that right. I've always said that worry is weaponized imagination. Somebody else takes the powers of your imagination and all the stuff you can imagine, and then they throw a bit in its mouth and they drive it down the road they want it to go, and that's what makes you worry. This great tool where you can imagine really anything. Good. I know.
No, I'm just taking
Yeah,
notes. That's really good. I'm over here writing notes. No,
yeah.
that's a weird shift because stress is definitely a choice. You can get rid of stress anytime you want. Fear is, I think, healthy. You
Hmm.
can be afraid. I do understand fear, but I also understand it makes me think more clearly. Like when I watch I love scary movies. My favorite movie is The Exorcist, and I'm a
Hmm.
Catholic, so what are you gonna do?
Sure.
But
That's
when
why.
you're scared though, well, what's funny though is like I was watching Smile a couple months ago alone, and I bought a new ice machine, and it clacked off, and my immediate response was Satan. And it's like, okay, wait a minute, it's just, but that's
Yeah.
fear helping. If I the thing with panic is though it's very contagious, just like the toilet paper. Toilet
Hmm.
paper became scarce because one person panicked, thought he needed it all. Toilet paper is not a survival necessity. You can live
Mm-mm.
without it. You got a sink. There's probably a river nearby, a
Yeah.
long shower. But
Yeah.
someone panicked, bought it all. Someone saw him, they panicked, bought it all, and they kept it
Yeah.
cycled
It's a
like that. That's
cascade,
just the way it
right?
works. But what I tell people, which nobody knows what you're feeling when you're panicking. If you can just portray calm, calm is extremely contagious.
Mm-hmm.
And watching other people calm down because you calm down calms yourself down. I've seen
Yeah.
that in war. It's because I mean, when gunfights start, you never know how you're going to respond. And I've been in fights. I was happy the way I responded the first time, got used to it. But seeing guys come in, it's getting shot at is not natural, and
No.
you're going to respond. And fear is if someone told you the first time they got shot at, they weren't afraid. They're either lying or they're a sociopath.
Mhm.
That's fine. We have a lot of sociopaths in special forces. No big deal. But with the fear's
And
fine.
in industry
Panic and calm
and
are
in
contagious.
traffic, right?
And traffic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and in industry. I will say that I think that a healthy fear that's natural will save your life. Being
Yes.
scared is another thing entirely. And as an entertainer, and a believer in the power of communication through art, there is a specific reason why scary movies and scary stories exist beyond just being
Yes.
cautionary tales of not taking pieces of pie from strange ladies in the woods and then ending up cooked with your sister, in an old grim fairy tale, right?
Why do the white girls always have to go to the basement and hide behind the chainsaws?
Yes, right. Yeah, just the swinging chainsaws. I'll be fine. But
We're good here.
but it tunes your nervous system. One of those things too is that panic and shock and getting more attuned to not reacting. It's like they used to, like, police horses and the like or whatever. They would literally have their stables right next to the gun range, so the animal
Yes,
would
you
get
used to.
close, get used to the sound, because any normal animal would freak out at the first time and buck the rider and kill the
Of course.
cop or the soldier, and so they would just have to do that. That humans are just like that. We have a nervous system, and we can
Oh,
adapt
totally.
over time to almost anything. But it takes time and awareness, and scary stories are one of the ways you do that. The less you respond to a jump scare over time, the more you've kind of tuned yourself to at least. And what you do when you have a jump scare is very different than when you're a kid and you just scream and fall over, or run out of the room. Whereas when you're an adult, you're like reaching for something,
Yeah, yeah.
battening down the hatches mentally or whatever it is. But the value of that is to tune your nervous system so that
It
as you
is.
become an adult, when something scary does happen, you can find your calm faster than your children can, and you are
Yeah,
responsible for that.
you need to, like, the realization. I was talking to my father yesterday, and I'm turning 50, like I said, but I still talk to him
Youngin.
like he's in charge of the house. The realization of, wait, I'm in charge of the house. I mean, I'm not worried about it now, but if you're a father at home and whatever, but someone, because I tell people, just because you're not at war with someone doesn't mean they're not at war with you. You can be as nice as you want. Someone comes in your house, you got a problem, and you got to save your kids.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how? Do you have a weapon? Can you clear to it? Can you get to your kids in hard point?
Mm-hmm.
If you can, good. That's a good start. The preparation, because getting used to stuff like a GPS. Can you find your cardinal directions? You know how to start a fire, shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, but fear is
Mm-hmm.
controlled fear can be a healthy method to prepare yourself for what may come, and it's the whole better to have it, not need it.
Then need it,
Aspect
not
of
have
life.
it. That's what I tell my son
Yeah.
about a winter coat. And because
Yes.
he's skinny and has a high metabolism like me, so he's always hot even in the snow. That
I put my kids' coats on outside. Don't put them on inside. I bring them outside, and we're going to the. Oh, you want a coat? Of course, it's cold. That makes it clicks for them.
it's
For
very
me, or I'm a
smart.
bad parent.
No, 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 it's smart. You got to motivate your kids because they're all very different. We all develop tools,
Yeah.
but I do think that in scary times, people can be manipulated when they're
Yeah.
afraid.
Oh, well, yeah. Look at fear. Politicians have been using fear forever. We have had the fear pushes legislation. 9/11, what do they push? The Patriot Act, because they make it sound so cool. Hey, we're just going to spy on you because you're afraid, but we're patriots. Inflation Reduction Act. Oh yeah, prices are great. They do that shit, and they either war, which we don't have a problem right now, or the fear of war, and you got watch out for the Russians, watch out for the Iranians, watch out for Hamas, watch out for the Houthi, watch out. Here, just give us a little bit, give the government a little more, and we'll protect you. It's all bullshit, man. Fear's a tool they use.
Yeah, it's well, and I also think there, the irony of why do we fear the Islamic Republic of Iran? Because if they took over, women would have limited rights and people would have less freedoms, and you wouldn't be able to say what you feel and all that kind of stuff. So better you don't say what you feel, and women should stay indoors because it's not safe outside right now, and maybe that lasts a lot longer. The Soviets, they're going to spy on you. That's what they do. They spy on their own people. They got more cameras on every corner than anybody else. And the way we could solve that is the Patriot Act and put cameras on every corner. You're effectively letting your enemy win. We always heard that thing about if we don't go shopping or whatever, the terrorists win. That was the thing. But the reality is that we were handing over our own freedom, in the name of freedom in a bunch of these things. It became a ridiculous argument. And I think that was one of the best things about it was because people started bucking against it. People started recognizing it was so seriously. The Cold War was scary and a long-term draw. And it was, the ideology was a little more clear cut, and there were no like there are Muslims that live in the United States that live as American citizens, and they're not looking to establish Sharia law and any of that kind of stuff. And maybe there's a few, but the vast majority aren't. But there weren't any.
There's a few.
Yeah, right. Yeah, most of them are in Dearborn and a couple other places. But there weren't any Soviets in the United States, is my point, who were trying to be citizens, right? There might have been Russians. But there weren't any Soviets, and that's the difference, and between now and then. So, in the last 10 minutes we have together, I think the key to kind of creating a bridge between both worlds is kind of is sort of a values check and priorities check for what you think. Of course, what constitutes a reason to go into war, but also like what we as citizens in America should prioritize in your estimation and really focus on, what idea do you think isn't getting enough play that people need to be reminded about so that this place gets better and that we get along better and that we as citizens, even when we differ, can have conversations like this one?
I'd say term limits, first of all, because no, I'm serious, because even the problem is not the guy that's in the White House for 4 or 8 years. The problem is the man or woman who's in the Capitol for 50. And you see it all the time. It happens on both sides. People are dying in Congress now, and it wasn't meant to be a hospice. When we went after Osama bin Laden, President Obama didn't even know about the helicopters. They had to tell him. Why? Because the intel realizes the president's a visitor. He'll leave. And Congress checks our budget. The FBI are not elected. CIA, they're not elected. Their budget's from Congress, not the president. They just keep that self-licking ice cream
10 years.
We'll get rid of Obama. We'll get rid of Trump. We might get him back. We'll get rid of Biden. The intel is the same people that have. Lindsey Graham's been there the whole time. I keep bringing him up because he loves war.
Yeah.
Chuck Schumer's been there the whole time. Nancy Pelosi's been there the whole time. Term limits. Stop voting on your raises so much. Shit like that. Like Kathy Hochul in New York saying, well, the rich that moved to Florida need to come back to New York for our generous social programs. They left because of your generous. So we need to get politicians out of the money. But once term limits, seriously, it was never designed to be this way. And it's, I don't have the answer for everything, but I know that I think Thomas Jefferson said the two-party system will end badly. I'm not directly quoting him because his English is better than mine. But
so is his French.
And that's why I say
right.
Well, yeah. The guys that with the internet, our forefathers were translating Greek into Latin into English. They were pretty smart.
He edited his own Bible.
What? Well, I got to come back on another time too, because we got to talk about the Bible. That was written a long time ago, but again, man and money got involved at some point.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, multiple translations will always do that, and I've always said, as a Mason, there's a great quote by Albert Pike who said, "Everyone's entitled to their own unique mistake." That's why Masons are secular religious, meaning any faith is welcome. You just got to believe in something beyond this life. and the reason is like you cannot fit God into the corpus callosum of the human body, and anybody who
No, no.
tries will come up with tribal law and a bunch of like you have to wear this kind of hat, and it devolves into that if you're not careful, right?
Yeah.
And
Bishops a few hundred years ago would charge Catholics a little extra tithing to spend less time in hell. And it doesn't matter what you tell them. If they give you money, they believe it. And that happened. And I mean, it
yeah.
happens all the time. Like, I'm a Catholic, but if I say I don't need to go to church because God is within me, and they'll say, you need to, I'm like, Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 2,000 years later, the word got just twisted a touch.
Yeah, a touch. I mean, obviously, any kind of king version of it, if the Kings rewrote any book you liked, it would kind of start to look different, right? Can you imagine reading
that point has been right in my face the whole time, and I didn't realize until you just said it. The King James Bible, written by a king,
right?
Maybe that's why our Jesus and our Santa are white.
That could be. Well, the Santa is white because he was a pagan, like northeastern European, myth. He was effectively, before he was Saint Nick and all those guys, he was a pagan winter god who, that's why he looks like Zeus, but fat Zeus.
Don't be getting crazy too by telling people Jesus is from Bethlehem and Christianity was in Egypt before Europe.
Right.
You start blowing minds around here.
Oh yeah. And again, I think that maybe that's where the direction of this goes, because there's a certain boiling point in kind of facts and conversation where we become I think we become a society of actually. There's a lot of like the sort of nerd who's like actually in every conversation, and that's everybody now. And so at a certain point, you run aground in your descriptives. It's one of the reasons why the Buddhists said if you meet if you meet Buddha on the road, kill him, because he's not really Buddha, and you're not really alive. Like, it's an absurdity. If you could spot him, what he looks like, you're doing it wrong.
I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah,
that is awesome. I'm writing more damn notes down here. I thought I had some good one-liners. You're crushing this, man. You're making my job easier because I'm going to sound so smart today.
I'm for it. I do think that the wisdom and value of conversation, and iron sharpens iron. That idea is that you should have conversations with people that vary. In the Bible, for example, and the English word sin that's in the Bible is actually more of a translation of the word mistake than it is evil, because it comes from sine wave. It comes from the same. It was actually an archery term that you would sin meant you just missed the bullseye, and you only needed gentle correction.
Yeah, it's a ballistic.
Yeah, because if you're sinning's one thing, but if you're evil, you're fucked. You just go to hell and stay there, right? But everybody sins, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So,
that's true too, and
I know that I want to get to one more quote of yours, which is that some things are possible, or everything's impossible until somebody does it. And I think there is if I'm getting that right, things are only impossible until someone else does it. Is that what it was? Like, yeah.
Yes.
And I think that when people hear that, they or similar sentiments, they often project it outwards. Somebody else is going to break the 4-minute mile. These sports records are going to be broken by a stranger in the future instead of themselves.
That's a good point too. The first time I saw Delta Force, which is the Tier 1 unit, we've heard of them now. They've done a lot. You haven't heard of. They're really, really good at being quiet. The first time I saw them in Baghdad, they were on Little Birds. I just landed. I saw Delta. I'm in SEAL Team 6, a Tier 1 unit. And so maybe 07. I've worked with them before. I saw him in Baghdad. I thought, wow, that's Delta. I hope I get to meet the guy that eventually kills Osama bin Laden. I was projecting it outward, like you're just saying. Like, they're going to get him. That's awesome. I hope I meet him, because there's no way in hell SEALs are going to get it. It's a mountain mission. So hope I meet him. But again, my initial thought was, well, someone will do it.
Right. And then it ends up in your lap, or your skill set meets the reality. And I think a lot of people, go ahead.
Yeah. Mine happened because I was going to blow up and I was tired of thinking about it. Let's just do it. And then I didn't.
How do you mean you were going to blow up and you were tired of thinking about it? You just like,
The last set of stairs in Bin Laden's house. There was one more set of stairs up to his bedroom. I had one guy in front of me, and there was a curtain at the top. He'd taken a shot through it, and we hadn't run into a suicide bomber yet. I knew Bin Laden was going to blow himself up. This has to be it. And the guy was kind of saying, "We got to go." There was only two of us. I wanted more. And he was brave for sure, but I was like, I could close my eyes and see it. I was going up to Bin Laden's bedroom. I was like, we're going to blow up now. I got to find out what it feels like. I'm tired of thinking about it. Go. And then we just went, and I shot him, and he didn't blow up. But that was the thinking going up. Yeah. But again, just preparation preparation. Really good pilots got that team into his house.
Right. And I'm a big fan of the movie First Man. I don't know if you've seen it.
I love that. Love that movie.
Yeah, so it's
love that movie
because I consider it a treatise on stoicism, and I'm what I call a stoic optimist. I think the default state of humanity is optimism, because you wouldn't eat a meal in the morning if you didn't think you were going to live long enough to shit it out later. And that, like, as stupid as it is, if you brush your teeth, you're an optimist. If you get up out of bed, you're an optimist. If you lay in bed, you're an optimist because you think at least you will avoid whatever pain or whatever you're going to experience. Even people who arguably do themselves in think that will be the end of the pain. And in a certain way, that's kind of when you're expecting the bomb, but you're going up the stairs anyways. There's still an optimism in this. Like, we're going to solve it one way or another.
It was that was more the end of the story. What a way to go. Like, we had the Braveheart conversations before we left, like getting on the helicopter. There was guys saying, I'm just going to say it out loud. If we know we're going to die, why are we going? This is after Bin Laden. And we talked about it. And we said, like, we're not going after Bin Laden for the fame. We're going after Bin Laden for the first Americans who were trying to fly from the East Coast to the West Coast and end up in a fight to the death, toe to toe with Al Qaeda. Those were passengers on United 93. They weren't supposed to fight. We're supposed to fight. Then we had the conversation. You can pull yourself off anytime. We have alternates, but if you'll live 50 more years. But if you're on your deathbed, would you give every day back for one shot at this asshole? The answer is yes. Get on the helicopter.
Right.
So it wasn't I'm afraid to die. It's more, this is it. Let's get it over with. I'm ready now. I'm prepared. I got it.
Yeah, but in that preparation, you're like, this is, it's still that drive towards, we're gonna do it. It's going to happen.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to do it. Now, the flight out was a different story, because that's 90 minutes we weren't supposed to get. We had to fly out of Bin Laden's house 90 minutes. We just killed him. We got him. Now we might live 90 minutes and not get shot down by an F-16 we built that Pakistan flies. And that was a long 90 minutes, but just knowing you're going to get shot down, but your worry's not going to stop a missile. Sitting with your friends, like, okay, starting to watch is 20 minutes. It's been 30. Got to get to 90. I can see my kids 40, 50 minutes. And then you start thinking about no-hitters at Yankee Stadium. Oh, I'm not going to say anything, but it's top of the seventh. I literally was thinking Miracle on Ice. I was thinking about Al Michaels' voice. 10. Now, the college kids that don't even like each other are beating the steroid-induced hockey team that hasn't lost a game since 1960, and now they're winning. And I was thinking about that, and the pilot came over the radio. All right, gentlemen, for the first time in your lives, you're going to be happy to hear this. Welcome to Afghanistan. Holy shit, we did it. Like that. So that one was more of a, boy, we can get it. The dying in the house I expected, but the living in this conversation were not expected.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on today. It was a real, I was going to say a treat, but it's more than that. I think there's a depth of conversations from. Yeah, we should do this again.
We should seriously do it again, because some of the comments would be fun to talk. Because again, I'm assuming your viewers lean more left than I do. I would seriously love to address that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a conversation, and it's not just Americans I love. I pretty much love everybody. So let's talk about it.
That's right, and I think that's the conversation that has to be had, because it
does now.
It de-villainizes your opponents and doesn't allow people who I would argue are. A political opponent is very different from a material opponent, someone who wants to do you in. And there's the language, because it gets very childish, dovetails towards those things overlapping. And I think that's fundamentally immoral and wrong. And I think but it takes work. It takes work to remind yourself that, we're talking about some folks, that are very serious. And I agree are, in the awful category that's off the charts. And I think there's a lot of overlap these days in who those people are, especially around the Epstein files and the like. So there's a lot of there's a lot of kumbaya about the weirdest shit right now. But one of the other things is that once this,
I hope we get there too. I hope the left and the right, the normal people, because we got crazies on all sides. The normal people can come together and have a conversation and say, okay, that was fun for a while. Now what can we do really, with all this
Absolutely.
bullshit.
We're in a period where the crust thinks it's the pizza, and that can't stand. And
You,
the,
you, how do you get this many awesome quotes that I've never heard? This is awesome.
I well, I'm the little show that could. I spout these kind of things all the time because it's how my brain works. But dude, I really appreciate it, and I do want you to come back on because I would like to further this
Yeah, that'd be
conversation.
great. I mean, we can do this. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's do it again.
this was
Anytime. Thanks
just
for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
the introductory chapter. And real quick before you go, funny story about the gun.
Okay, when you leave a command or retire from the Navy, they usually pitch in and get you a nice pistol, a nice gold pistol that, 10 grand or whatever. This deployment was after Bin Laden. I did another 4 months in Afghanistan in the winter. And so my crew got me that gun back here, wherever it's right there. That's a drop gun. That's a gun someone had, an old shitty gun with no serial number that in case we, needed an extra gun, there it is. They put that on a plaque and it literally says, not your most memorable deployment, but your last. That's it.
Right.
It's awesome. A friggin' drop gun.
It's like getting like when somebody they give you a gold watch for retirement, they know you'll scuff the shit out of it, so they just decide to get you in like an old Timex that fits your look, and is real and useful.
That's it.
Right.
That's the one.
Awesome. We'll talk again, Robert. I really appreciate you being here.
Of course. Thanks. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Cheers. There you go. And chat room, there he goes. Robert J. O'Neill, author of The Imposter. Hold on. Or sorry, where is it? The Operator. And I'm gonna open up this thing. Hold on one second. Doink. Where are we? Here you go. And I'm gonna put Rob Glenn is waiting in the wings. Let's see. There we go. I'll pop him in here. And we'll get started on stuff because there's all sorts of big news, and a lot of it has to do with government overlap. There he is, ladies and gentlemen, in my thing, and I'll push this, and then aha!
Hello.
Look at that. And I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna.
I have no control over. I can't get OBS to work at all.
I got
these
it.
Days.
I got it. I took care of it.
Cheating.
It's been wonky. I think there's been a bunch of updates and for a bunch of stuff, and I also think that like there's a lot of squirrely stuff happening in the open source world because everybody's trying to improve using AI tools specifically, and there's a lot of wind-up toys out there right now that are doing a lot of this stuff. So welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. I gotta say there were okay, a couple of things. We'll start with Bezos because this is the part I had an existential dread moment earlier this week. Well, I'm being kind of silly about this, but
I saw that chunk of your show, so
yeah,
I'm up to date.
Yeah, so the combination of things, and the primary one being this idea that jobs, there's acceleration towards job loss from AI that's actually caused by the Fed doing the right thing based on the old system to some degree. And
I see where you're going. I wouldn't say the Fed is causing it. The Fed is reacting to businesses doing what they're doing. I
don't think they're causing it. I think they're accelerating it, though. I think they're speeding up that process, and unwillingly, or because the reality is if you're looking at it, just like the tariffs, had the similar impact. That if you've got less money to spend because you're spending more on product, you're not going to hire somebody. We looked at job numbers last year, and they were revised down again. Our inflation was 3.9 for the year after Trump lying about it being down, and they revised it up from the projected 2.7. It was way worse. It was almost, a third higher than when Biden left. And but the Volckerites and in the Fed and Trump wants low interest rates because he thinks this is how you make, he's going to save money. He's going to refinance all of his stuff. Yeah. And he just wants lower interest rates because he's got huge amounts of debt and rolled over stuff. And his World Liberty Financial thing is a debt arm company. It is a loan and lease and loan kind of setup, mixed with crypto. But it still needs interest rates to be low because they're going to be using stable coins. Everybody's ditching Bitcoin except the Russians, the Chinese oligarchs trying to get their money out before through the only venue they can. And everybody else is moving to stable coins, which is tied to the U.S. dollar. So they need the US dollar to be stable and strong, and they need interest rates on borrowing dollars to be reasonable so that it expands on a reasonable level so that the value of their stablecoin goes up at a measurable amount in the same way you would do any other currency. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
So let's just be clear. Like, I agree that Trump's reason for low interest rates comes
It's
entirely from
personal. Right.
his personal, like, long-term history of being in real estate, essentially. And his answer to everything is, I want free money so I can go gamble with it. And yeah. So yes, absolutely. So we can just take him off the table.
Yeah.
Um,
He's not a serious actor in this conversation. Right.
Yeah, but the Fed is a backwards looking entity, essentially. Like, they see what they think is the data, or the position of the country. All the data they get is backwards looking. And my argument would be that it doesn't matter. Like our current interest rates are kind of right in the middle of where they should be. Like, historically, if you go back to the 80s until now, they were really high in the 80s, and then they kind of started transitioning down, like, maybe, I guess, around Clinton. But historically, like, that 5-ish% is not a terrible place to be,
Right.
when it comes to like
Balancing.
balancing the borrowing expense with the money you can make off of just sitting cash in a savings account. Let's call it, like, really low risk savings. And so, to me, the issue with, like, what you see backwards looking as the interest rates causing accelerating unemployment, I'm not sure that I agree with that. I think unemployment currently is businesses not having really looked at what they say is the problem, AI, and considered, like nobody's actually come up with a plan, or even the idea, or even like started talking about what the future is. And instead, what they're doing is they're, like, applying old logic to current data, and that data is all over the place. That data is all over the place for a whole lot of reasons. One is the fact that, like, the government just has an old way of measuring. Two, you could argue that the current administration is juicing the numbers, however they're doing it. Three, the policies of the Trump administration are so volatile that you get volatility in the numbers because of what he's doing, effectively. Like, you can't necessarily understand the situation based on GDP, let's say, because GDP is screwed up for the next year because front loading of tariffs, and then the shutdown. So you've got two things. Like, a bunch of companies thought that the tariffs are going to be a thing. They front loaded. They then held inventory. And then the shutdown was a whole month or month and a half of, like, no data. So now we're here in March of the next year, like, what, a month before previous Liberation Day, supposedly.
Right.
And the numbers are, like, year over year. So you've got two major events in the year over year that are jacking up the numbers.
Right.
So, and we haven't even started to talk about the future, which everybody's blaming for their unemployment numbers, or we're laying people off because of this new future, but they aren't even using it the way they say they're using it yet.
Right. Well,
so everything is jacked.
So I agree. I'm by the way, for the record, I'm not saying that it is causing the unemployment numbers that we're seeing right now. It is hurrying the shift towards not hiring, and that's where it's affecting, like, new college graduates and new jobs that are added. I mean, it materially is. I mean, the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, Market Watch, they're all running articles on what the hiring numbers are right now, and they are definitely muted.
Terrible.
Yes, as companies have specifically decided to lean in. Now, I would argue that, like we saw with Jack Dorsey, he was full of shit and, just hiding from the fact that he had a bloated company he couldn't justify, and his company doesn't have the revenue for 8,000 employees. So he cut 4,000 and said, we're leaning into AI, and that was a smokescreen for bad previous decisions. That's him looking back while trying to look forward. But this is a real...
But I would argue that the reason he became the 8,000 and is now the 4,000 is because he had access to the money to hire the 8,000.
Yes, right.
And so I'm not sure that I agree that whatever, if there's low interest rates, people are going to get a bunch of money and they're going to gamble with it. Like what they gamble on is irrelevant in this case, because the train is already going down the track and everybody's trying to figure out where it's going to end up, and nobody knows. And I think that the bigger problem is the volatility that's created by the current situation, added to the fact that literally nobody is planning and looking at this thing as the reality of what it is. Like, we have done absolutely no thought or plan or anything. The Congress is completely shut down. There's no tax law or any law. He's literally saying we're not going to make any law because we want it to just be what it is.
Let it roll.
We want to
right. He wants
really
to do with
rich
AI.
companies
Yeah, yeah. His AI plan is COVID, redux.
Exactly.
It'll
work itself out. Maybe when the summer, when the sun comes out, it'll go away. That's literally his plan.
So we had, we talk a bunch about, this aspect of it. There are a bunch of mainline fears that people have, which is the job loss part of it. And I had kind of like a philosophical conundrum about the conversation about this. And I'll show you what it was sort of triggered by in what we saw, which was this one. Bezos. There you go. Hold on. This, I'll roll this out. Bezos has this project called Project Prometheus, which is an AI company he has that I want to say is worth $6.8 billion already. Like he seeded it with this money, and they're looking to do $100 billion round of investment, and the entire purpose of it is to automate all industries, as much as they possibly can. And there is a tipping point sometime in the next year where Amazon will have as many robots as it has human employees. And to some degree, there's a debate about whether that's lowering the number of actual Amazon employees that he already has, or just the build out is softer on both sides. Like you go up 10% on both sides as you're expanding. And the idea becomes that's why he can sort of expand into other areas, other businesses, other stuff, because he can double or triple or 5x the work of a human being that's doing the job or whatever, in a way that if you wanted to start a newspaper from scratch, getting the LA Times going would be a pain in the ass, but you could actually kind of, you could grow an industry so much faster. If an individual can do it and the first single person $1 billion company is here, anybody with this kind of resources obviously should be able to kick the manufacturing part of it into gear. And that's what's happening. So the Wall Street Journal reported that he's in talks to raise $100 billion for a fund that would buy manufacturing companies and seek to use AI technology to accelerate their path to automation. Full, if not, 80% automation in a bunch of these areas. Now, this is a road we've been on for a very long time, and we've automated all the thumb crushing jobs out of the way that we possibly can. And now we're moving into, the back breaking and the elbow busting and the weary hand stuff, and the black lung ones will be next. And that's where we're going. And what his point that he made in this conversation about it was, humans will do all the tricky, intricate, specialized work, and robots will do all the back breaking work and stuff. And this is the way automation and machinery has been, even before automation, this is the way machinery has been going. Ask horses about this. There used to be dudes pulling Cleopatra around, and then they got horses and camels to do it. That's the point. We've been doing this forever. It is not that odd, right? And it is a natural progression of that particular idea. How do we hand off this heavy lifting to somebody else? and and that isn't slavery and doesn't require a horse to drag a cart around Central Park 6 times a day. So the fund is connected to this thing, Project Prometheus, which if I'm not mistaken, is the name of the statue that the dudes want to build on Alcatraz. Remember they were gonna do to bookend. So yeah, all these tech bros wanted to put a giant statue of Prometheus on Alcatraz Island, like knock down Alcatraz and put this giant, like the Statue of Liberty on one side and Prometheus on the other, and this would be the promise of America, right? That
all the billionaires can move to Alcatraz.
That's a great idea. Yeah, exactly. So,
or all the tech bros. Sorry.
Yeah. So, yeah. Innovation is tied to inputs and materials rather than to assembly robots. So that's also a part of it. Is that it isn't just the putting together of stuff, but mining and processing and farming and all that stuff. Okay. So, there was a they did an interview and he's trying to raise $100 billion for this thing. And again, his company already has $6.8 billion. And here's the thing, Rob Glenn, Root Design Chicago, that I went through is that where everybody goes immediately is in this, there won't be any jobs and what will people do? And I'm sure, there's certainly angst among people who think they're going to be replaced. But there's also a big kind of, when you're talking about warehouse workers and you're talking about people who are, miners or people who are doing backbreaking work, there's this tacit sort of classist assumption that if those people can't dig a ditch, they can't do anything. And they'll just be idle morons sitting in trailer parks with, if they don't have that to do, what awful will they get up to? And this is the same shit the Catholic Church said in the 14th century, and every king ever has said about why people shouldn't be free. And, so I do bristle at this idea that if people are replaced in warehouse jobs, that the obvious end result is that we'll have a bunch of idle, drug-addicted idiots with no direction in life sitting around, being like poor, like they're on the ground in Elysium.
Yeah. All right. So there's a whole lot there. Let me start with the fact that Amazon is not a manufacturing company.
No.
They're literally warehouse company. Mm-hmm. And that's all they do. I mean, they're a software company too, I suppose.
He makes chips too.
And I guess
he makes
what's that?
He makes chips. They do have a Tranium chips are selling like hotcakes. Stacks of 9 with syrup.
The factory that makes the chips, or do they send it to a?
Okay, he built his own thing, and that's sort of where this was born out of.
Maybe my direction of thought here is the fact that like for manufacturing that's easily fully automated, he's got it all there. He's doing it all. But I keep saying to people like, automation is really fucking hard. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult to do. Mm-hmm. And automation of like pure manufacturing things, right? Like if you want to make 100,000 cars, then you're going to spend a whole lot of time coming up with the automated factory to make the 100,000 cars. There's a huge sink of capital and time and people that go into doing that. Mm-hmm. And AI will not solve the physical yet. It's not even close to being able to solve for the physical. So when you take a guy who like has made all of his money effectively like dumping money into things that are easily automated, and he thinks, well, everything's going to be automated, he's wrong. Yeah, he's totally wrong. And the way I'd back that up with reality is use China. China's an awesome example of there's all the money in the world available for making shit. They want to like rule the world because they're the supplier of everything. And they think that will be the thing that like, makes everybody do what they want because they need their stuff. We need our stuff. So we're going to be okay with China doing whatever they're going to do. Right. Mm-hmm. If you look at China, there's a very distinct separation between what they choose to robotically automate and what they choose to just have a whole shit ton of people sit there and do.
Mm-hmm.
And you can walk through factories and see those things and where the divides are.
Yeah.
And those divides tend to be like, I'll give a few examples, like soft goods, like backpacks,
Mm-hmm.
clothing, things like that. It's pretty difficult to automate the
Stitching of fabric.
sewing of fabric.
Yep.
Yeah, that's very difficult to do. And if you go to China, you will not see automated fabric sewing unless it's like a very high volume of something that can be done in like a different way. Like Nike uses lasers to like meld different materials together like you would a stitch. So that can be automated, but not the actual like stitching of a fabric that has like like it's stretching and it has bias and all that stuff, right? Now take that and compare it to a chip which is impossible for a human to make manually. And it has been for a long
Forever,
time.
right?
You're like, yeah, you're going to automate a chip because it's so fucking tiny that a human being can't even like articulate that size.
Yeah.
So a chip became a chip because of automation, not because like it can't be made by a human being, right? They're electric cars or electric cars versus internal combustion cars, let's call it. It's easier to automate an electric car because one, there's less parts, and two, they're kind of like a cell phone on wheels, right? Whereas an internal combustion engine car has a lot more parts and a lot more assembly and things like that, a lot more like things coming in at different directions. So all of that being said, they're a great example of the fact that there will be a divide. And as much as like we see really awesome robots, doing the dishes, and that's awesome that they're doing that, really awesome robots that do the dishes are not going to be building internal combustion engines for a while, right? Like it's going to be a different kind of automation. So to me, the future is figuring out where machines can do it really well, which is chips. And it's going to come down from chips. It's going to like, there are certain things you can automate well. And then what are the things that can't be automated, and shift the jobs to effectively the physical things that can't be automated.
Right.
And that will look different in the future because of all of this work, but it's not going to go away.
Right. I agree, but I do think there are mass things. We've been through these kind of shifts in automation before. There used to be 4 guys who would help lift up a piece of metal to the side of the car before the welder would come in. The welder's still valuable for some degree of things, but the 3 guys are gone because there is an arm that sticks to the side of this thing and can push it onto the side of the vehicle as it goes down the factory line. So
your point, those problems have been solved and are being solved as we go.
Right, and but I'm saying they are moving actively to try and pre-solve these kind of things. And I think products will drift in a direction that are the expectation of automation, in the same way that like dolls used to be, a porcelain head and the body was sewn by a person and there were only a limited number of them. And then we got, we could press a Star Wars figure, and then we got good enough where you could press one and leave a gap inside of it so that you could put another piece of red plastic in there to make a lightsaber for Luke Skywalker that could slide in and out of his arm, right? But that was like a 2-step process where they would, make the body parts and the sword piece, the little red sword piece, and then a human being would snap the pieces together and then put the sword in. But the distance between hand-sewn dolls being the only available thing to mass-produced Star Wars figures that people literally keep inside the case because they want to keep them pristine, which is so ironic considering they're all identical and from an injection mold. Action figures are meant to be played with, people. Stop keeping them in boxes. This collector thing is very weird.
Yeah, I mean, the thing you're driving at though is what's the value. So
yes,
it's not inevitable that everything goes from the hand sewn thing to the action figure. That's not inevitable.
I agree,
That's
but
a choice made by people who buy them.
Yes, I agree.
And there can be an opposite choice where somebody says, why would I want that crappy action figure? I want the handmade sewn thing, right? And and
Hmm.
that's our equity in it. That's our choice as
Sure.
consumers.
Right.
And there will be a spot. There is a place where things become too cheap. I mean, again, the
Hmm.
fashion industry is the same thing, right? Like
Yeah.
when you have slaves in China making t-shirts that last like 1 or 2 washes,
Hmm.
people stop buying the 7.99, and it basically it gives you the floor. It gives you the floor of what is too cheap for a t-shirt, right?
Hmm.
And then there's the high, which is, I don't know, like some fashion brand from Italy or something
Right.
that's
Yeah.
like 100, right? So now all of a sudden, if I pay 19.99 for a t-shirt that I know will last a couple years, then can you make the 19.99 in the US with like a blend of automation and human? And so it's not, you don't like automatically choose the automation because you don't want to spend the money on the human. If part of your value and part of your marketing is the fact that you have humans making them because you're making US jobs, right?
Yeah.
So at some point a balance happens
I agree.
there, and we don't just like go headstrong into like a robot automated everything,
Yeah.
is my point.
Yeah, no, I don't think we're going there at all, but I do think there is this idea that there are jobs that can clearly be automated and clearly be done by AI in a current iteration or in a near iteration in the next, year and a half. It's
Mm-hmm.
definitely moving in that direction, and that what Bezos seems to be trying to do is, instead of waiting for that demand to drive the move towards it, they are accelerating on purpose the manufacturing for, even if it's just for so that they can do more Blue Origin parts, like all the parts that go into a rocket
Yeah,
that you might
it's
do.
it's
And
self-serving. He
yes,
he wants to be making more chips and all the things that he does. He wants to automate the stuff that's coming into his warehouses because he's pissed about paying margin to a manufacturer because he
right,
wants more margin in his warehouses.
right.
It makes total sense.
There is a thing about let's see, like a more. Hold on one second. There's a thing in yeah. This was one of the most boohoo moments I've ever seen. I'll show it to you in a second. I think I've got to apparently sign into this. Um, that um, when you're talking about luxury brands, okay.
Hmm.
One of the things about the manufacturing in China, that if you go to New York and you're walking around Chinatown, there are all these guys out on the street selling Louis Vuitton bags and stuff like that, and everybody's like,
It's
it's shit, it's a knockoff, it's a it's sort of okay. What people fail to understand is that the Louis Vuitton bags, the real ones, are made in China too. And
right.
what happens is the knockoff bags are not made somewhere else with cheaper materials. They're made with the same shit on the same printers, and the night shift comes in and makes them with the
Right.
approval of
It's
both the
exactly.
factory and the Chinese government. They do this to undercut these brands and to sell them out, and they make deep fakes of everything. And they're deep fakes because they're made in on the same floor. The knockoff Nikes, they have like Zhou Dan, which is like old egg, oddly enough, shoes, which are Michael Jordan shoes, and they even have the cutout of him doing the dunk, and it's the same factory. It's the same shit. Okay, the luxury brand and the fake thing are made on the same factory floor.
Hmm.
The luxury brands are, even though they're made in a factory in China, are treated as if they're hand sewn by an Italian shoemaker, and they aren't.
They aren't.
They are
Yeah.
not. And the wealthy apparently just value these things because they choose to in this time. Like certain kids like certain sneakers, or it's the toy of
That's why I
this.
keep saying it's marketing. Like,
Yes,
it goes both ways.
that's right. And so it's not even quality with them. And so the Chinese are moving towards automating most of those things. And can they put together a whole shoe? Absolutely not. But they can now get to the point where the stitched pieces, before it's shaped and tucked into the toe and glued, The shoe itself. That's why if you look at the shoe pattern on both, there's a toe piece, and then there's the parts that come around the side with the whooshes on it and the laces, and there's usually a separation between those two pieces. Why is that? That's because a machine can sew this part in one chunk. It can't put it together, but it can do that whole piece. That used to be that had to be done by hand. And now all they do is slap that part together. A human being sews this piece and this piece, and then they get the entire, it's an injection molded sole, and they slap the thing in there and they slide the piece in. So what used to take, maybe an hour to put together takes about 4 minutes. And that's the way they've been moving. And that's their version of automation. Can they finish the whole thing? Absolutely not. But they can get it so far along that it's that Rob Glenn 99% rules, that most of these jobs have a lot to do with just what's the competency level to get them done. And it's a lot lower than people expect. Because if you don't know how a shoe is made, you think it's ridiculous. But if you know how to make one, you're like, oh, if I could automate these 3 steps, I would save myself half a day.
So so I've been in a number of factories in China, and one example I'll give is a cell phone, a place that essentially laminates the LCD to the glass that is part of your cell phone, and in between there's a touch sensor, and that's how you get the ability to touch. And this massive factory that probably made literally 100 million of these pieces a year, for a particular cell phone or a few cell phones. It had a fully automated line where literally all the inputs went in one side, and this thing went down the line, and it came out done. And then there was a bunch, and this is in a highly a very low particle per million space. They keep the dust really low. It's a clean space. And then they have these tents, and these tents were the really low particle per million. And inside each tent was a Chinese person who was doing the QC manual, the little things that manually had to be done to each one.
Right.
That line was designed, made, and built and started in South Korea. They got it working, and then they took the whole line, they disassembled it, they moved it to China, and then they ran it in China so they could get that thing. So in the example of your shoe, imagine that in Nike, who is a US company, instead of going to China to have that shoe made, they effectively brought the machine to Seattle, wherever, California, and they built what you just said, which is the 95% of the shoe. And then they had a US worker do the rest. Effectively, we're capable of doing that right now.
Right.
And so the job lost is not the US job from that automation. Right. The job loss is the Chinese job. Mm-hmm. And you actually added a job in the US. Right? So the idea of bringing stuff back, we need to stop thinking about it like this old school Donald Trump ridiculous stupid idea of we're just going to have a bunch of factories and blah, blah, blah. We need to think about it in the new world, in the new way things are made, and how that's happening, right? And so a lot of things can be made if you automate the front end and you use the human to do the little bit at the end or whatever, any part of it. Or even monitor the machines. And so the Bezos idea, we started with here, I think that when you see it in the way that they talk about it, they think that manufacturing is just another software company. I'm just going to put a bunch of chips in there and put a bunch of this and that and inject money, and all of a sudden manufacturing is going to work.
Right.
And they're wrong. They're just wrong.
Right.
You need people to get you from the physical to the digital and in the reverse. And so I don't in my mind, only thinking about the US, that's where we even back out.
I agree. I think most of
training people on that divide.
Exactly. And I think that there is a thing about, I've said from the very beginning, that the first jobs that are going to be lost are the ones that were outsourced to other countries.
Exactly.
And then when you move stuff back to the United States, there might be fewer jobs at these factories or whatever, but there will be more of these factories. You can make them semi-local. You make them smaller. They don't have to use the economy of scale as much because the AI and automation takes care of a portion of that enough to go. You don't need like the big Nike factory. You can have them spread out regionally, so even your transportation
Absolutely.
costs and all that kind of stuff get lower.
Well,
Local.
that's a whole like conversation about the economies of scale of products in general.
Yeah.
I listen to this guy that like runs essentially a 3D printing farm, and he
Mm-hmm.
talks about the idea that like what we call mass market products, they're
Yeah.
probably like in general, the majority of them, they're under 20,000 units. For something to go above 20,000 units is very rare.
Yeah.
Like an iPhone will, yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But like if you just walk through Walmart, most of that shit in Walmart is under 20,000 units individually.
Mm-hmm.
So if you start thinking about it from not a mass market, they call it high sorry, what is it? It's high mix. That's what
Mm-hmm.
it's called in manufacturing. So high mix is a factory. Low mix would be one factory makes like one thing a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and high mix would be one factory makes a lot of things a fewer times.
Mm-hmm.
But if the product is a million things for the one that makes one, you would make 10 things at 100,000 each, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even smaller. So what you really want to think about is how do we make a factory that's really good at making 10,000 of one thing and then 10,000 of 10 other things and then 10,000 of 30 things, right?
Right.
And in order to switch, you need humans.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't just take an automated line and just like whip it around and have it make something completely different.
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm. Well, increasingly, like maybe there's a sunset on this that's 100 years in the future, where each of those things is. And I think at the speed that we're operating, it's the parts that are doable are happening faster than people expected. And I think there's also a mix of expectation from a marketing standpoint from the AI companies and what Bezos is bought into. But there's also an element of like Project 2040 that's going on. Like in the Middle East, they have Project 2030 and Project 2040. And the Chinese have always had this, China 2050 plan for, that they, the idea is that they're looking at the long game and they're moving towards that direction. Now, I think you're as much in danger of screwing up long term when you think that far out and, if your goals are too specific.
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
You need like sort of concrete, sort of foundational goals, and then you let the other stuff kind of work itself out, and then you react.
Exactly.
That's
because if your idea is to automate everything by 2050 or something, which is partly what China is talking about, like almost everything, you're not factoring in the fact you're basically eliminating drive from any human being in your country, and
True.
That's
You're also
happening.
spending a whole bunch of time trying to automate things that don't necessarily need to be
automated, right? That you're going to spend way more money on if you'd have just made the thing and put it out, and that 20,000 units, idea. Now, eventually, if you have a factory that can basically handle anything long term, the idea is that we're not servicing us, we're servicing the rest of the world, and our whole goal is to undermine the economies of other countries. So we want to, anytime somebody orders something, we can whip out 20,000 or whatever it is, from a TV to a toy, in a matter of days, faster than anybody, with as much automation and lower cost than anybody. And it won't be zero people, but it'll be minimal people, and we'll always fight to keep that lower. And so their goal might be at hyper automation, because of their aging population and a bunch of other things, that they might actually get to that point faster than we do. The problem is, will that drive the consumer market in the end anyways, when the effective cost of labor goes to near zero? It won't be zero, but it'll be near zero. And I wanted to show you
Yeah,
right, exactly. I wanted to show you this one thing. This is my boo fuckity who headline. In Dubai, world's luxury brands face a wartime crisis. Apparently, the Iran war, I don't know if you know this, are tough on people in Dubai who are buying Fabergé eggs for $80,000. And yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and
I don't think we should be there, but I also don't cry for them.
Yeah, exactly. This was the interesting thing. The war. The language on this would probably make people's blood boil, especially if you're Israel and you're worried about Iran nuking you, if you're in the United States worried about Donald Trump taking us into another Iraq grind and all this kind of stuff, like this stuff, it's absurd to start with, but it becomes there's like a hostility in reading this that I can completely understand. But listen, the war has created a crisis for luxury brands in Dubai. A report from Bernstein Research estimated that luxury sales in the Middle East would be cut in half in March because of a sharp drop in foreign visitors. Again, rich tourists going down there to do god awful. If the duration
to buy exclusive things, what's presented to them as exclusive.
And I've told you this story, I'm sure, about when I went up in the Burj Khalifa and I went into the gift shop at the Burj Khalifa, and it's the same shit you'll find in any like golf club house where they sell the tees and the t-shirts with the logo of the club on. It's the same crap. None of it was special. None of it was like, oh my god, everything is gold laminated. The chocolates are the greatest you've ever had. No, it's garbage. It's the same shit. There's so much like just like I don't know, trash that people buy, and it's the same at every economic level. Let me read this quote, and then I don't know, get your response to it. If the duration is limited, Dubai could go back to its former glory. And this is just going to be a dent, said Luca Solca, an analyst at Bernstein, based in Geneva. If the war continues, then this would not be the case. We do not know what will happen, but we hope it will be short, said Andrea Guerra from Prada, which has 4 fashion boutiques in Dubai, told investors on a conference call this month as Iranian attacks escalate across the Persian Gulf, including Bahrain, Kuwait, and Emirates, where they sell a shit ton of their stuff. Like, that is the market. That for Prada, the idea that this used to be a New York market. Think about where Prada went, and The Devil Wears Prada and all this kind of stuff. That this is about Hollywood celebrities and well-known people, fashion people and artists or whatever, wearing these fancy, ridiculous clothes that can't be bought, are off the rack anywhere. And then their line of stuff that they sell in the world is in these it's in a Paris boutique, it's in a London boutique, it's in the New York one or whatever. But they have 4 of them in Dubai. Right? There's 1 in Manhattan. There's 1 in London. There's 1 in Paris. There's 4 in Dubai, and for Prada alone, it's their Kmart in a lot of ways, and their sort of quality and desire for it is almost identical to somebody here with way less money, shopping at Walmart. It's done with the same level of thought. So at some point, when you start lowering the cost of manufacturing stuff, and these fashion people are like, well, why would I have 1 store in Manhattan for a few people when I can have 4 in Dubai? The same question is, why don't you have 1 in Wisconsin at that point with a bunch of people making them at a certain point? And that's how we got Nike and Levi's and all this other stuff. And that's how the sprawl happens. And I don't see them going, we're just going to focus on selling, 2 pairs of shoes for $80,000 for the rest of our lives when we could sell, 500 or 10,000 at for $160 a piece or whatever it is, and dominate a market and then build into other things. It's how they all operate. The point I'm trying to make is that these things aren't any different than the stuff that's made in the same factory in China. They aren't that different in quality overall. Half these people, they throw it out after 2 washings because it's out of style. The irony that the question of durability is just a different category when it comes to rich people shit, and half of them walk around in fucking sweats anyways. Like,
right.
Think about all the rich assholes in Beverly Hills who are basically just like the guys walking around in tracksuits. Hollywood was like, for a long time, it was like you could tell a producer because he was running around in a fucking tracksuit, like a Puma tracksuit, which is I don't know, $80 to $120. It didn't matter, and it's increasingly not going to matter. The people are going to.
Yeah, I agree with that in the sense that like the luxury brands in general, they're not unlike convenience stores. Like,
yeah,
if a convenience store happens to be right at the airport where you have no other choice, then you can charge a lot more for a bottle of water, right?
Right.
Like, and so if you know that a bunch of rich people are going to Dubai, then your convenience store is a Prada store, right? Like
Exactly.
it's the
Well,
same
I
concept.
mean, you're paying
And
half of those clothes are expensive because they don't want to go to another neighborhood. Like
yeah, and
you
Prada, and well, that's the thing is like, we're using, I hate to like disparage a brand, whatever. Um, but any brand is gonna like put themselves in the spot where they're gonna make the most margin, or at least make a
yeah,
margin which is commensurate with their strategy, right? From a marketing standpoint.
right.
And so if you place yourself, you've got to place yourself in there. But my point is like no matter where you are on the ladder, you still have to
Yeah.
put your
Oh,
pants on
sorry,
one leg
one
at a
second.
time,
I switched to
in a
my
sense.
phone was picking up my headphones. Give me 1 second.
Oh, sorry.
It's being annoying. No, go away, quit it. There we go. Hopefully my ears will come back. I apologize.
Can you hear me?
I will in about 3, 2, something like that. Hold on, let me make sure I switch
Three,
over to
two,
here.
one.
I think it should be fine. And we're back, I think.
All right. Can you hear me?
Think. Check 1, check
Hello?
2, check 3, check the 4,
Check,
check
check,
5. Yes,
check.
I
All
should be able to
right.
hear you.
Are you good?
There you go. Sorry.
Okay. So what I was trying to say is like, so no matter where you are on this ladder of price point, whether a purse costs $1 million or $10, and all the ones in between, like your company still got to put the pants on one leg at a time, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they still have to show a profit, and they still have to have, So Prada is in the same boat as I don't know, Target. Like I don't know what a
Yeah.
brand at Target for purses is, but you get the idea.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and yeah, so um,
Mm-hmm.
I think the problem is that in general is that we're led by the nose by these stupid fucking articles about Bezos and his
Mm-hmm.
$1 billion, and it's like if you just dial it down to like the normal people and what they're buying and what they're selling and what they're doing, like it's not that different. It's just a new way to do the same thing.
Right.
And what I
But that
think is
also
like
contributes to
totally
its
missing.
inevitability, though.
Well, but what's totally missing is what you just said, which is the idea is that it's inevitable that their vision of the future is going to happen. And what we keep forgetting is that we all have the ability to do what we do, which is not the same as what they want us to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then the
Right.
future will actually be what actually happens, which is probably not going to be their vision.
Right. Okay. So here's what they're doing. They're not expecting this to happen in the next quarter or even the next
Sure.
year. So here's the plan. The near term industrial optimization tools, meaning that the
Wait,
robot
this is
this
Bezos' Amazon
Bezos's plan.
plan. Okay,
This is the
let's hear it.
Prometheus plan. This is what they're
Prometheus.
putting out.
And
Yeah, the
did they
Project
like
Prometheus.
use what is it? Prometheus, the movie, is like the beginning of Alien, and
No, because I guess his rising from I don't know, like his fighting the gods,
okay, so keep going.
his struggling with reality. Okay, so and so phase 1 is largely Amazon focused. Phase
Yep.
two, and he's almost through it. That's the other thing. They had a 1 to 3
Yeah.
year timeline. He's more than in the last year he's ahead of schedule. And it was industrial optimization tools, meaning that everything that can be refined from the movement of parts in like the warehousing of
Yeah,
production.
if you look at an Amazon warehouse, they've like squeezed everything out of it.
It's
It's pretty much what it's gonna be now.
Yeah, and they're adding Digit, the robot, and then eventually his own robot that effectively is just like Digit, which is the one that has the kind of like fetlocks like legs that can pick up a box and move it around and do the back-breaking lifting of picking up a bin worth of shit. That's one of the few things they couldn't do with just like a pick and place.
Yeah,
They
but
need a
they'll
little.
solve that with like a figure 3 or like an Atlas or something.
Well,
Or their
that's what
own
Digit
version
is.
of it.
That's what Digit is. It's just cheaper. It does way less. They don't need, again, the Rob Glenn 99% rule. They don't need figure. They've already got
Right.
Digit. They're already working in a bunch of factories, and they're going to increase. It's just a matter of production now. And part of the reason why they're developing their own robots is because we've talked about this for a while, that like once somebody starts building the actuators in the United States, and there are enough small computer, single board computer printers here, it's just game on. They'll just start cranking.
Well, I would
But
argue that we're basically there now. Like,
yes, we're very
you
close.
can use
So
China as a supplier of those actuators while we build out our own. The stupidity of the tariff problem is a long-term vision would have been a person like Trump saying, we're going to buy everything we can from China while we build out our own thing, and then we'll cut them off.
that's
That would
exactly
have been
right.
the right thing
I
to do.
know that's the part that drives me fucking batty whenever he talks about this. Is like because that's what you would do. You don't. It's not even
Right.
about the products anymore. Your trade deficit would go up
You're,
because you are buying the equipment. You're buying
the equipment
the
to basically
pieces.
have long-term ability, long-term to make that, and
Yeah.
then you move forward and cut them off. And he's basically like, we have to still do that under his plan, but he's making it twice as expensive to do it.
Yeah, it's stupid. Like it literally
It's
costs.
fucking stupid.
Yeah, you could buy like a cheap lithography machine that does small computer boards like a Raspberry Pi. You can buy one of those from China for I don't know maybe $30,000. They're now $70,000 to $100,000, and
Yeah.
and
It's like if it's like the strategic oil reserve. I always heard what, or I always like was taught when I was a kid. I won't say by who, that it was so that we'd use everybody else's oil and keep ours. And then
mhm.
when they ran out, we'd rule the world.
Yes, right. That was it's
Which
kind
is
of the
actually
plan.
what it's
Okay,
more like what it should be for, right?
right.
You should think about PC boards and like Nike shoes the same way. Like,
Yeah,
if you want to think about it from a national security standpoint, I mean, and I'm not talking about it from a resource standpoint or anything, only from national security. If your enemy, supposedly China, is trying to like somehow destroy you by whatever, you basically like suck away all their resources,
yeah,
get them, like have them all be gone, and be like, hey, we're on the top of the mountain
right.
now, like we'll make our own shoes.
If Trump had brain cell one of the things he would actually not tariff is any kind of production equipment or components for
Yes,
production
absolutely.
equipment of
No
any sort.
machines,
For
raw materials, everything, like
for
none of
three
that stuff.
years, right? That's it. Like
Right.
for the next 3 years, we're just going to operate at zero tariffs on that stuff and a tax break. Just start buying this shit and stacking it over here.
Buy
Start your
all
own.
of it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
anything you can use for manufacturing that you buy from their factory floor, they will sell you the factory floor. You can buy
Right.
all of it out from under them because they think they're going to make more. So yeah, totally. Okay, so here's the. Let me get through the timeline of this.
Sorry,
See if
I keep
it's okay.
interrupting you.
It's okay. Industrial optimization tools, simulation heavy AI systems. So this is one of the things that NVIDIA has been doing, where they've created these. We've had this big jumpstart in robotics over the last year, largely because of the simulation training thing. And I said years ago that if they just trained robots on the reality physics in Call of Duty, because the soldiers have to run
Yeah,
and fall and they do all that
effectively,
stuff.
that's what they're doing.
Yeah. That's essentially what they built. Was its own little. They just
It's called Omniverse or Omniverse.
yeah. And so they're going to do that simulation heavy AI systems, which is build out a factory like you're playing Sim Earth and make all the shit and see what bogs down where you'd need a person to fix stuff. And these simulations are based on reality physics. So they are building. This is all based on high, and it's why AI has been the tipping point for this is because you could never simulate to this quality up till now. I mean, the best thing you had was like a high quality video game like Call of Duty or one of these things where you're using a lot of graphics and a lot of physics simulation, but it still wasn't enough for something this specific where you had to had to functionally say where the resources are. Hold on one second. So this is just near term. The third part is partial automation in factories. So they're already starting. He's done a ton of stuff in that area, but what they're gonna do is Amazon's gonna outsource what they do for that part of it, sell those little Amazon Shuffle robots and their system to other areas. So there are a lot of like warehouses and junction points that Walmart uses and all these other companies, and they don't have access to this. And it will you back your truck up to this thing. It's full of apples. There's other smaller trucks that pick up the apples and take them to all the grocery stores. We're gonna have a system in there where all these little robots run around, and humans might put them onto that thing, but they zip them off and put them in the right truck after that. So that's the near term. Midterm, semi-autonomous manufacturing systems built basically from scratch on the design of whatever the company is doing. And that's all, there are already some in play in a lot of places, but they're going to maximize those elements. And then the other one is AI designed hardware pipelines, meaning we're going to start from a total sim environment for the parts that we need. We're going to do it, we're going to simulate it multiple times like they're teaching robots, until we just build this factory. Like, this is the best, most optimal version with the reality of the weight of stuff that we have, the foundation of the building, the heat of the environment, if it's in Arizona or it's in California, those kind of things, the real physics of it, they're going to have to deal with that. And then long term, fully self-improving industrial ecosystems. So the whole point, and that's 7 to 15 years. That's what they're expecting. So they're talking about 7 to 15 years, that almost everything in a factory, with except somebody, walking around because they're paid to turn the light on and off if there's a person in there physically because the union says so. I don't know what other people are going to be doing, but that's the timeline. 15 years at the max. They are ahead of schedule in the near term. They started with this by and large last year. This $100 billion flood because of AI and because of the simulation software that's out there. And what most people don't know is Bezos has his own chip called Tranium.
Yeah.
And the Tranium chip is specifically for training. It's for training AI, and
where it gets very specific is that they're coding for the chip, and the chip is being made for the code. Like, that's
right,
maybe a decent way to describe it,
right,
which is not unlike NVIDIA's stranglehold on the world, because
yes,
NVIDIA chips run on CUDA, and CUDA is made by NVIDIA. So that's how they keep their stranglehold. So if you're Google or you're Amazon, they're both doing the same thing. They're essentially designing code that goes with a chip and the chip that goes with the code.
right. And so as they do this, they have here's the first generation, the second generation, the third generation that they're already on. It's a 3 nanometer AI chip that they have built, which is ridiculously small. It is definitely for high order stuff, probably military and I don't know, the elevators in Dubai, they'll use it for that, I guess, in buildings. But the Tranium 2 is basically sold out all the time, and partly because they're running out of the NVIDIA chips. They can't make them fast enough, and because of this bum rush to do this. Now, I will say, in that, looking in these things, and not where they're gonna be, or where they say they're going to be, or where the Donald Trumps of the world think shit is going, is that there is a material reality. You want to sort of know what's going on in the world of real news about like AI and that kind of stuff. The MIT labs are a good place, I found, to kind of catch where things are, where they really are, what they can really accomplish. And what they can really accomplish is already staggering. And these tools exist. It's just a matter of who puts them in place and implements them, or buys the chips that are capable of implementing them. Because this high order of availability, they still require a lot of power, a lot of chips, a lot of processors. They won't in the future, and they know that this is a cascading line. But I'll show you some of it just to get a general gist on this. These are the main stories that are on the MIT site or whatever. Generative AI improves a wireless vision system that sees through obstructions, meaning that it can interpret what's behind a wall. That's the Palantir goggles idea, that you can see a person through a wall by their, by these like vibrations and heat signatures and other inputs, and you can put together a 3D vision of somebody, behind an obstruction. Already here, already there. Now, is it wearable? No. Is it going to be? Absolutely. Is it going to be in your eyeball? Maybe one day. Maybe that's why Geordi on Star Trek has that, hair clip on for eyes in that regard, because that's what it requires. They have figured out why AI bullshits itself. They found the interrupt part where they can keep it from doing that without having to prompt it outside of that. So that's becoming a part of the training. It's in almost all the updates that are going out right now. Where's the other one? There was a new one. Yeah. So this one, this is the self-iteration part. So this MIT class is using anthropology to improve chatbots. So they're using they all are. They use the language and all that kind of stuff or whatever. But they're using AI to improve the AI. Is the point? They are using historical summaries created by AI to punt towards and teach the other AI, which is again sort of the self-iteration process, and that brings us to the OpenClaw thing, which has exploded. So now we got
Well,
yeah.
I want to just for a second. So you said a whole lot.
Yes.
The one that stuck in my mind was the phase one of the Amazon situation was that they were going to effectively sell their equipment to make other warehouses better. And before you get to all their other plans, which are only plans until they're executed.
Sure.
I think people kind of forget that there's a whole shit ton of DeepSeek moments that'll happen in between.
Oh yeah.
Because if Amazon, who supposedly has, the juggernaut of all warehouses, starts selling their technology to other people, then other people don't need Amazon warehouses anymore. And I would argue that they don't need them even if they don't buy the Amazon stuff, because there's enough videos that people are like, oh, that's a good idea. You have a little robot do a little thing and I'll go build one. And I know this because we're fucking doing it.
Right.
I just keep I want people to stop catastrophizing on this crazy idea, all these articles about what the future is going to be. It's great to be a futurist and it's great to think about all these things. But if you get caught up in that, you will quickly be like, there's no hope because it's just going to run away and leave me behind.
Right.
That's not true. You have the tools right now, absolutely right now, within everybody's grasp that's listening to us for free or for $20 a month. You can do all the things they're saying they want to do in your house with 2 computers or 1 computer, a laptop, basically. And I know this because we are doing it right now. So that's my major comment about the general Amazon plan that you're talking about, is that first of all, Amazon needs customers, and all of us as Amazon's customers. And second of all, everybody that's using Amazon right now is not everybody, but a lot of them are trying to figure out how to not use Amazon anymore.
Yeah.
And so as technology rises, eventually somebody's going to be like, you know what? I don't need to ship my 100 units to Austin, to that warehouse in Austin. I'll just fulfill them myself.
Right.
And I know this because, again, I have clients doing it. I'm doing it. I have the choice right now to direct sell to customers or sell on Amazon. And I'm choosing to sell direct because it's the best thing to do for us. Yeah. And it's going to continue being the best thing to do for us. So, all of the DeepSeek moments in between, they're going to happen. And there's going to be a whole lot of innovation if we just do it.
Yeah, I agree. Well, again, I think the localization part of it is, and the fear of the climate impact of AI is driving most of the conversation. It's if you listen to what teachers are saying to kids about AI, it's all about cheating and climate change. And by the time, the biggest waste, environmentally will be the building of these giant data centers that are unnecessary by the time they're
down.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
They're just bricks sitting there.
Yeah, or turning into a fucking hockey rink.
And all of the deals. I mean, this is such a fucking Trump thing to do. All of the numbers, all of the things, it's bullshit. In fact, the OpenAI NVIDIA thing, they already canceled. They said, oh, we're gonna. I don't even know what the numbers are. $1 trillion worth of something in the future, and then NVIDIA's we'll give you $1 trillion worth of something in the future, and it's all bullshit.
Right.
Because it never happened.
Over in a month.
And they canceled it. It's already not happening. Because why? NVIDIA doesn't have enough fucking chips to give them.
Right.
Because they can't make them fast enough.
Right. And as they build factories to make them faster, again, the models themselves, the current models that we enjoy, the really high level ones, the Claude Cowork ones, or whatever, by the end of the year, probably beginning of next year, will be small enough and portable enough to fit on your phone. That's how these things are growing.
Absolutely.
And you won't need a giant data center. You won't have to go to the cloud at all. Everybody will have their own like Claude Core OpenClaw level thing. You could already run an OpenClaw that's incredibly competent with dozens of virtual employees locally. You don't need any
And
of this.
my argument there is that most people don't even need Claude Code, or
Right.
they don't need the big, huge models. They need little models, or they can use little models and become so much more productive. It's scary. And literally on a computer sitting right next to me runs an LLM that makes our shop way more productive than it was before we were running it, because we were smart about implementing it.
Right.
Right. You don't need, I mean, we still use Codex and we're doing some pretty fucking cool stuff with it, but I'm using it for like $20 a month or whatever the lowest price thing is.
Right.
And, I look at the usage data and they say, oh yeah, there's this 200 and these like videos online, or like people like, I did this thing. I sent you this, the accounting one. And there was a guy, basically, he's a CPA, and he was talking about how accounting is going to be taken away by AI. And his testing was using one of the Claude Code, I think. And he said he blew through his credits for $200 a month. I'm using the $20 a month Codex thing, or it comes free with ChatGPT, which I pay for. And we're doing crazy shit that's like, our clients are like, holy crap. Yeah. This is the most shit I've ever seen from a customer or a vendor.
Yeah.
And I'm at like 75% of my of my usage for doing way more than we could ever possibly see. And you start to get into the reason I sent you that accountant thing. I've had a hard stop at 1:30, but
that's all right. I
want to try to articulate this real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
Like, accounting is a really interesting thing, because why do you account? Like, accountants are like, oh my God, AI is going to come take our jobs, and it's going to, but not because it's taking the accounting job. It's going to take it away because you don't need to account. Like, you don't need accounting. What AI, I think, is going to show us is that the whole thing is bullshit. And here's why I say that. So if you do your taxes, if a normal like family does their taxes, you've probably got a couple of W-2s. Maybe you throw in some stuff that you donated, or I don't know, your mortgage interest, or like whatever the normal family does, right? Well, if you use QuickBooks, they already know what all the information is. Like, it's usually downloading automatically.
Right.
So really all you're doing is clicking buttons inside of a thing that already knows what the total is.
Yeah.
And they're just like putting you through this fucking thing and charging you 100 or whatever they charge you. And it could have all been done automatically. Right. Now, here's the crazy thing to think about. The reason you had to do it to begin with is because the system was set up to make you do that. Well, with AI, you don't even need the system to begin with, because it all just happens automatically.
Right.
And so many CPAs, especially in business, like, I do my own books. That's all right there. It's like, I basically buy stuff and I sell stuff, and there's like ups and there's downs. And at the end, it averages out to whatever it averages out. And then we're like, oh shit, now we got to pay taxes, or shit, we took a loss. Now we get to save on taxes, whatever. The CPA basically comes in and looks at it, and they're like, I know this crazy tax law, and if you did these things, like, basically like rearrange the numbers so that you save, or you whatever, then you'll save on taxes. And I paid the CPA to basically tell me how to rearrange my books to save on taxes. And you know what? For me, at least, and for I think a lot of companies, the cost of the fucking CPA is more than the cost of the savings.
Right.
So it's because there's a whole bunch of rules that nobody understands. And then a CPA gets in the middle, and they're like, I'm going to read all the rules and try to understand them. And then I'm going to tell you how to get away with shit in the gray area.
Right.
And then you got a whole bunch of Donald Trumps in the world that are like, shit, yeah, I'm going to get away with everything I can.
Yeah.
And anyway, the point I'm trying to make is when you inject AI into the situation, it doesn't just inject into like me filling out my QuickBooks or me like filing my taxes. It also injects itself in the other side of the situation. The CPA doesn't need to be needed anymore because the AI can deal with the law and tell you what the things that you can do or can't do are.
Right.
And if you add AI into the law side, like we've built this mountain of crazy rules, and we have to have the CPA. So you basically whittle it all down and you end up flat.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have a CPA anymore, but you're not doing your books anymore. And guess what we're all doing? We're actually doing the work that matters, not fucking talking to our, like filing our taxes for a fucking month.
Yeah.
Like it's insane. And that's what AI to me is about.
That's
like,
the value point,
it's
right?
on all sides.
Yes.
It whittles away all the unneeded stuff that we're doing and tries to get to the essence of what we need to do in order to be productive.
Well, I think that's what, ironically enough, that's what Bezos was talking about with automation, and that's what everybody's been talking about with automation. Is like, what are the important parts for humans to do, and the rest of it is just a way to lose your thumb in a stamp press, or a turret lathe. So I'm going to let you go because I know you got to go, and we're going to raid Boston Brian, who's live as well.
Yeah.
But I do want to throw this out there that one of the things that OpenAI released this week was deep research, and deep research is literally a scientific research tool available to all colleges, universities, but it's also on the regular plan now. So if you decided, average person, that your big thing is like, how do we optimize electrical flow in the city? If I brought a plan to the city council and said, hey guys, I figured out a way to, to lower everybody's energy costs and more functionally use stuff, and we could do this, you wouldn't have the tools or the ability to do that as an individual without, burying yourself in a hotel room like Nikola Tesla and scribing for years. And now you can. And so, again, that flattening, that democratization aspect is the part that I just don't think everybody's factoring in. And this assumption that workers, people who are put out of work at a factory are now, A, going to pay less for stuff because stuff costs less to make. And they get their side hustle could buy them way more than they could have gotten, in terms of benefits and other stuff than their job gave them. But on top of that, they now have the time and the ability to focus on what they would do if they didn't have to grind.
Exactly.
And that, I think, is the part that's not noticed. Yeah.
You were saying something a couple of days ago, or I don't remember what show, but something about, maybe it was on your when your existential day about your AI. Like the idea that this is a very difficult idea to wrap your head around. But so if you're a billionaire and your money isn't spendable, then it doesn't matter that you're a billionaire,
right?
Like you're still just Elon Musk and you're living in a house and you're driving to and from work, right? Like, and so, and that's a really incredible like concept to wrap your head around. And I connect it to the one that, like, you introduced this to me and I never thought of it before you said it. And I heard it from you a while ago, that idea of like going to China, it didn't increase people in the US didn't increase their income. It decreased the cost of their goods, which actually gave them an increase in income because they could buy more, they could have more. That was like, and so if you think about it from that standpoint, like a double-edged sword, it cuts both ways. Like the reduction of, like the creation of a way to make stuff that we need, which costs very much less than it does now, it has the opposite effect on our situation. It literally makes it so that, so the way that some problems are solved are not by tackling the problem. They're by making the problem irrelevant.
Yes.
And it's entirely possible that the future, the Star Trek future that you talk about, happens because like the money just becomes not a problem anymore.
Yeah, it's
because
not a factor.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't,
AI, I am convinced,
mean
more than I have ever been right now. I am convinced that AI will eat the rich. And I don't mean that it's going to destroy people. Right. It's just going to equalize what it means to have value. It makes it irrelevant.
I've always said, the way to get to Trump is not to fight him. It's to make him irrelevant.
Yeah.
Like, you make Trump irrelevant, and that's the only way to beat him, right? Like, or whatever this thing is that's going on right now, is you basically and that's hard to say because the president of the United States making the president of the United States irrelevant just seems so counterintuitive to everything we've ever known.
Mm-hmm.
But everything we've ever known is changing at such a high rate that we have to think about those possibilities. Like,
That's right.
you know, Britain or the UK became irrelevant because they lost their like power, their sea power, right? Like
Right.
after World War II, they just like went inward, and before that they were us, like they controlled the world practically,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
And the same thing can happen to us, and it probably will. It's happening right now, likely,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we have to think about that. And it doesn't mean
But
we lost.
no.
It just means the future is different,
Yeah.
and we have to wrap our heads around that difference.
How is Switzerland doing in the middle of all this? And I don't, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like they are they have nationalized healthcare. They're a very rich country as far as resources and the quality of education for their people and stuff. They're not mucked up in any of this stuff. And you could argue that is the most powerful country in the world the one that can extend the most power in the rest of the world and has to expend lives and treasure to do it, or the one that has a great life for all of its citizenry without having to do any of that bullshit to start with.
Because they didn't have to go out.
It's irrelevant.
Anyway. They're all happy. They're not going to leave home.
Right.
And that's not a terrible thing. Like,
Nope.
you don't have to project it. You can just be happy where you are, right? Like,
right. And you're right.
Those are the different ways of looking at the world. That's all. It doesn't
Agreed.
mean one's right or wrong. It just means that the solution moving forward can be so many different things. But in this like fight mentality we have, like it becomes binary. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, like AI is not binary. Like it's not going to be what we're being sold. It's going to be what we make it along the way. And that's
right.
why, like, every day I use it, I just want to be like, Hal, you will not believe what I just did. Like, I want to show you what I just did, because if you use these techniques, you can make this thing that you've been trying to make this thing work. Like, I know you can.
Right.
That's our conversations when we're not on the show.
That's exactly right. And there are, a couple of things, and I eventually will get to part of these, but like I was able to, and this is how things are advancing. It isn't the way they are. Like, people are talking about AI like it was 2 years ago, when it was hallucinating a lot and it wasn't very good and it was slow and it didn't have access to the web and those kind of things. And they think in those terms as like this kind of like dunderhead put in a box. And it has changed so much, and the effectiveness of it has changed so much that, again, I've always said that this is going to be the assistant for the strata of the populace that could never afford an assistant. That, that robots will eventually be the butler that nobody in our strata of financial ability would be able to afford a fucking live-in butler. And that's what's coming. And it's not going to put butlers out of work. They never would have existed in the first place. But it's going to allow us.
I would argue that it might make butlers
more impressive.
Like,
having a real butler.
You might want to have a butler because I don't know, like, it's a job, right?
Yes, right. Yeah, having a real person do it, But I also think the chances that having a butler whose memory you can erase is probably good for a lot of people. So, right. But that's a conversation.
Butler, right?
That's a conversation for another time. But I went through an entire iteration of a show idea. I started talking. It started out as a concept. Like an argument that I was having about what it means to be, virtual and real and all that kind of stuff. Just in the, one of my sci-fi conversations or whatever. And I was like, nobody around me is going to put up with the depth of this conversation except maybe Rob. And so I went in and I started basically arguing the concept with multiple chatbots. Like, I didn't just go to one. And then over the course of it came this idea for a movie series, Black Mirror episode or whatever, called John 1, about, these, I don't want to share too much of it, but the idea is that once we start uploading our brains into computers, like Peter Thiel and them are talking about, how do you know it's still you? How do you know that's your real consciousness and not a copy? And that somebody is going to have to be able to prove that it's you. That this isn't just a copy of you rolling forward, that it's actually your consciousness. And how in the hell would you tell the difference? And that there would have to be judges. Well, who are these judges? I call them the dualists because these are people who have uploaded and are still in their human body, who can handle it intellectually. Very few people who can handle it, but they can see in the system as a computer, but they can also see in their own lives through their biological eyes. And there are only a few people that can handle it without going crazy. And these people can tell. They can tell if that's really you and your consciousness made the leap.
It's like a checksum in coding. Like
that's exactly right. Yeah.
You want to verify twice, like a dual verification and a website.
And so I worked through all the parts in it, came up with a villain and kind of the basic, the philosophical conundrum of it. And I would have never had the time to do that. It would have taken me months to work up like a show Bible. And now I was able to crank it out in like 6 hours. And I can tweak it now.
And I would argue that the next step should be like use the tools available to you to just make something that like is presentable.
Yes.
And then just go fucking present it. Like you don't wait. You don't like hold on.
I'm thinking about making a manga out of it, like a comic book, essentially. Oop, he froze. Rob froze right at the moment because he's behind and he's got to go. He's got a hard out in 10 minutes and he freezes right at the moment. All right. I'll see if he pops back in, but I'm going to go to you chat room real quick. And clear something up while I wait to see if he pops back in. Where did you go, Rob Glenn? On the way out the door, when Robert J. O'Neill was with us, I called his book the Imposter versus the Operator, and the reason I said that is because there's sort of we didn't really land on the moon. Osama bin Laden wasn't really killed in the same way that Epstein was was strangled by a rogue cop. And so I wanted to clear up that I had in my notes to ask him about people in that sort of the quote unquote fake news aspect of it that do that. And so I misread that while I was transitioning over, and I didn't want to insult him by saying that. So I wanted to clear that up real quick on my way out the door. And CSL, if we release that as a clip, we should just mute the word when I said it and just leave it. It'll leave the rest. It's fine. Because I don't want to have to attach this as an addendum or whatever. But that was why I brought it up. I had literally in my notes that people tend to think this didn't happen. Bye, Rob. Thank you so much. I'll let you go. He's got to go. We're going to go over to Boston Brian, and I'll see you guys this afternoon. Doc Adam is going to be on with us this afternoon at the 3 o'clock hour, 3 p.m. Pacific time. So please come on because there's a lot to talk about with Trump's aging cottage cheese brain. And we're going to get into that, as well as the kind of back and forth about this. The war is going to go on. There's no way you ask for $200 billion for something that's going to be done in a week. Just doesn't happen. Not going to happen. Just deal with it. Anyways, Rob and I are also going to have another conversation offline. So just count on that. Understand that. Believe that. We're going to be nerding out outside of our normal the confines of the show. So I'll let you guys go. And where is my I just needed to find some
potatoes and chicken.
Sorry, that's what I was looking for. So I will see you guys this afternoon. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. Okay, go say Boston Brian. Tell him we love him and we support him, and he needs to come back on the show too.